this point is be held against you in the court of internet. Looks like there is a Facebook chat issue today. We might not see Facebook chats, but usually everybody's on YouTube anyway. We're going here, playing the music. To wait for the things to propagate. I'm gonna put out the bat signal as well.
What's up, Chris H?
Chris H. Man, Chris H is always like the first to show up, I think. I think Chris H is. Alright. We're going here. Alright, the bat signal is going out. Channel.
Is the live?
The live what now? Rick Bogus. What up, Jason?
The mograph.com/live.
Hold on.
Isn't showing.
Hold on.
Okay, sorry.
I gotta clear the YouTube cache for it to show up. Have you tweeted yet?
I have not. Chris has.
I did.
If you didn't, maybe link to the YouTube, just in case.
He tweeted to the live.
Oh, it's whatever. It'll show up here in a second. It takes a second for the site to register.
There it is.
Oh, it's there now?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Looks funky, but whatever.
Oh, that's weird. Sometimes my cache, I can't tell. But it's on YouTube, so we're good. Alright, who else is in here?
Am I supposed to be recording right now?
Not yet, you're
No,
fine.
you don't have to.
You're fine. Let's see. Just checking our Facebook page and then we can start doing our thing. There's that stream. There it is.
What's up, Bat Boy? What's up, G-Rant? What's up, Dan Marino? What's up, Ken? What's up, Todd?
Grant, Dan,
What's up, Steven?
Kent, Todd, Steven, all the people. All right, I'm taking our faces live here. So we can say
Do it.
hi. Hello.
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 Hi.
Hey, let's check out that that chat, see how that chat's going. Get a little, I'll say something here. Make sure we can see it in the stream. I know Facebook chat is not working today according to our streaming
Double
service.
hellos. Yeah, that's been all week actually.
Bat Boy.
Oh, really?
I'm not seeing any
I'm
chat.
not seeing any chat. Hold on, let me just refresh it real quick.
Oh, interesting. I'm seeing chat. You got Jason and Matt Dog. Grant, what's going on?
We're just not
Matt
seeing
Dog.
it in the old.
I know Chris's camera is way better than ours.
There we go. I just reset it. Let's see if something comes through.
He's much more legit than we are.
That's because I bought a Sony
There it is.
A6000 to go do like photo walks, and I
Uh-huh.
did that for like a month, and then I didn't use it for 2 years. I'm like,
That's
screw
funny.
it, screw it. I'm plugging it in. It's my webcam now.
Well, yeah, we've got chat. I think we're good
There we go.
here. Yeah, we're good.
Cool.
We got the beeps on. All right, let me grab my
Oh.
notes. I'm gonna go ahead and start recording. Check,
Yeah, me
1,
too.
2.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Hello. Yep. Start recording.
All right. Did you hear me just say check 1, 2?
I don't think so.
Let me double check. All right. Did you hear that?
Did you turn the med? No, I did not.
Boom, 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 boom. Check. You are hearing me talk. Did you hear that?
What's up, Sage?
Did you hear me say you are hearing me talk?
Yes, I did.
What about if I play this back now? Me talk.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Hi, Sage.
Cool.
How's it going?
Check. Sage. I haven't talked to you in a while, man. Miss
No,
you,
that's
bro.
what I was thinking.
All right, I'm rolling here. Is everybody else rolling?
I am rolling.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All right, I think we are good to go. So for the intro, I'm going to say I'm Dave. Matt will say I'm Matt, and then he's going to introduce you, and then just do a quick hi, and nothing else because you might get stepped on because I'm going to go into the whole spiel after that. And then
just a little.
after that, then we'll do the week wrap up, blah blah blah, and then we'll get into it. So.
Good plan.
Okay. All right, let's do a clap. It'll be 1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Perfect.
And all right, let's do this.
Every moment I live is agony.
Please kill me.
Please kill me.
All right. What up and welcome to another Mograph Mocast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt, and joining us today, one of the most influential people in the Cinema 4D world from Rocket Lasso, Mr. Chris Schmidt.
Hello, everybody.
And Mograph is a supplement to our site, mograph.com, which is a motion graphics tutorial site with tutorials, plugins, podcasts, and other Mograph stuff. And on the show, we talk about everything ranging from motion graphics to Cinema 4D, After Effects, plugins, render engines, doing business, doing taxes, being a contractor, or working for the man. And you can email us info@mograph.com. Let us know what you think about the show, questions, comments, queries, concerns, grievances. And we love to hear from you. If you've got questions that are super technical, super new, but doesn't matter what it is, even if it doesn't have to do with Cinema 4D.
They would definitely be the one for super technical.
Whether or not you like new Coke or not, you know, things like that. Anything you want to talk about. I know that we talk a lot about throwback drinks on the show. So,
well, we haven't in a while.
Well, you heard New Coke is coming back.
Is it really?
It's like a retro throwback.
So
Stranger
New Coke
Things.
is going to be old Coke?
New old Coke. Old new Coke.
Old new
It's
Coke.
just like a throwback, you know, Stranger Things promo for a little limited edition.
Gotcha.
Remember this terrible Coke? You want to try it again?
Yeah, we've got it. It's called Crystal Pepsi.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
I have no recollection of what that tasted like. When did that even happen?
85.
I don't think I never had New Coke.
I don't think I
See,
had New Coke.
my parents growing up, they were always a Diet Pepsi family. We were a Diet Pepsi family, dang it. You know?
It's more of the more closer to West Coast, I guess. Then that's the thing. West Coast is more like Pepsi. I don't know. It's weird, but
I was at a speaking of the Stranger Things, you know, tie-ins. I was at a Baskin Robbins the other day. You know, because apparently, what's the dude who was it? Steve, I think. Yeah. Like he works at like an ice cream shop or something in the new season. So they're like tying it in with Baskin Robbins, and they've got like, you know, a Eleven's favorite ice cream or something where it's made with waffles and syrup or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is a weird feedback loop we're living in now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Just wait till 20, 30 years from now when it becomes like super retro to pretend that you're retro, actually being retro.
Is it not now?
Like
Is it not now?
It's
Are
like
you trying to
double
tell me that
retro.
mom jeans are actually in style?
They are. I live
It's
kind of
so
just off a college campus, and it's like, oh my god, it hurts my brain.
And giant glasses. Those already came
Hey,
back.
there's no giant glasses.
I don't like giant glasses. Like huge glasses.
Oh
yeah.
Anyway, the other thing I was going to mention is make sure that you subscribe to our new channels and feeds and things, because the other ones are going to go away. There's so many people that are still watching and listening to the old feeds on the YouTube channel and all that. Pretty soon you're not going to be able to join in or chat or do anything anymore, and so I don't want none of that. What happened to the show? Why do you guys don't do the show anymore? Well,
If you are currently listening on the Mograph YouTube channel, stop.
Yeah,
and go over to the
unsubscribe,
Mograph one.
resubscribe.
Well, you don't
Yeah.
have to unsubscribe.
Well, otherwise we're just gonna keep going back to it. Or
Right,
they'll have a
that's true.
double feed.
Yeah.
Cool.
Other notes for this week. Still no comma
I
separated.
love that Kevin just said click subscribe button.
Yeah.
But he's watching it in the Mograph one, not in the Mograph one.
Oh, see,
he's
there you go.
commenting in the Mograph one.
Well,
that's funny.
okay. Here's one from this week, and Chris, maybe you have a good answer for this, but besides the take system, but Matt, you were having to do some re-renders this week.
Yes.
And the problem is, it would be nice to have a way to, let's say you have 30 frames that you have to re-render, but they're all over the place. So do 1, 7, 15, 23, and say which frames you want to re-render. So you don't have to sit there and babysit that one frame here and that one frame there. And a lot of people have said, well, just use the take system, but that's a lot of work.
Well, I think so. They released something on Cineversity. It was a CV plugin, but I was pretty sure that it actually used the CV frame range.
Yeah, doesn't that use the take system?
I don't know. I felt like it did when I was watching Donovan's tutorial on it, like a year or so, like right after they released it. But I don't remember.
That might be a quicker way of using the.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like comma separated values and just the render.
The problem with it was I was using bools, and so what was causing, like, I was getting UV errors as it was rendering on like a few frames at a time because I was using those bools.
Right. I've had that problem before. Sometimes you have to check every frame for that too if you're in Octane, but I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
Other things from the week.
Kevin.
What did Kevin say? Oh, click subscribe again.
He clicked subscribe again, and he's actually doing it in the Mograph one. That's funny.
I had a great project. I've got a great project for the reel this week. Don't you hate when something comes in that screws up a project? Like, you're like, this is going to be a great project. This is going to go on the reel. And then the client does like one thing and you're like, I don't want to put it on the reel now. You know, I had one of those this week because I designed like a sweet logo, but then their client came back and said, no, we want to use this old logo made with like Final Cut default font or something, like it was the worst. So it was turd polishing all week, but I think I managed to make it look good. But you know, sometimes you're in this situation where like the logo really doesn't lend itself to 3D and you really got to be creative. And so I don't know, I'm thinking almost about doing like a thing on that, on sprucing up and just making everything else
How to
look
polish
good.
a turd in Cinema 4D.
Yeah. Stupid logos need the most attention. But I'm thinking about doing something on that. Also, we've got some Camp Mograph updates.
Camp Mograph.
It's more of a retreat. So we got notes from people saying like that's stuck in their head now, and that's good. That's good. That's the point.
Yes.
Whatever. So, Chris, did you see the like remix one that you're in?
Did you see the video
for Camp
Mograph?
Yeah, for Camp Mograph.
No, I'm in. I did not even know I was in.
It's like one of those auto-tune the news things that we put all these clips of people at NAB together.
Okay.
When we're talking about Camp Mograph, we'll send it to you after the show. And it's just like it's got the horns going like just stupid. We'll send that to you. But we also have a song that was put together that's our camp song. With a guitar. That we just got that in a couple days ago, and it sounded really good. You've got the kids sing along and everything, so that's gonna be great. Be our anthem.
Imagine the introduction to Salute Your Shorts. And
that's where
you go.
Good reference.
Yeah.
So other things we've got. Monkey Legs contest entries. We got some more this week.
Yeah.
And
did you see Pickle Nicks?
I saw Pickle Nicks. That was good.
Oh, Pickle Nicks was so good.
So those are coming in. Make sure you post those to Instagram. You have until the last day of the month at midnight will be the cutoff, and then we'll go into judging. And big announcement this week as well, so make sure you are subscribed to the Camp Mograph newsletter, campmograph.com, or our newsletter, either.
Yeah.
And then, what are we going to say what we're announcing or no?
I mean, we're gonna be announcing some of the counselors who we're bringing on to join us at Camp Mograph. So
All right.
that's gonna be fun. Make sure and look out for that.
And then, what else? So got the contest entries, the song. Chris Doe actually tweeted about it this week. We were happy about that. So there's,
Yeah.
you know,
I don't know. The whole conversation with it is
that's funny.
silly.
The promo code, he does have a special Christo Facebook promo code. If you can find it somewhere on the internet, you can get a little money off, but we're not going to say where it is. And then, and that's it for Camp Mograph. We got a lot of good feedback last week from the show, the Jewel stuff, and talking about mental health and anxiety and dealing with all that kind of stuff. A lot of people that were in the same boat sent stuff or little messages after the show talking about they're dealing with the same things, anxiety, kids, especially relationship stuff. So, and again, next week we'll be kind of revisiting some of that with KC. And then the one thing that I did find that was a really good, I hope I didn't use this analogy last week already, but did I talk about the cake analogy? I don't know if I did.
I don't think so.
So I get to these places where I get a little frustrated or anxious or, you know, have imposter syndrome or whatever. And I'm like, I feel like I'm not doing enough. I need to do more. And I, you know, this person is so much better.
I've
and,
only stayed up until 4 a.m.
Right.
6 nights this week. I
Right.
need to get that 7th night in.
Yeah. But I saw a really cool thing, you know, if you make something and then you see someone else's that is, you know, you feel like it's better than yours or whatever. There's this cartoon and it's only 2 frames, but in the first frame, there's an artist and he's got a cake and it doesn't look that great. And it's next to a cake that's like really, really, really nice, like a super awesome wedding cake. And he goes, oh man, that person's cake is so much better than mine. I can never be like that. But then it shows like the consumer in the next frame looking at both of those cakes. And the consumer says, oh, wow, 2 cakes.
Right.
You know, so it's more about like how you feel about your own work. But again, next week we'll be talking about that a little more. I also started reading The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. And
how is it?
It's really
Is that the
good.
one you accidentally bought on our company card?
Yeah. Whoops. So it's yours now too, Matt. You can read it as well. It's an audiobook. The one thing that really helped me is that there's an order of things in your head that usually happen. Like as an artist, when you're going to create something, usually the way that you think it's going to happen in your head is inspiration, motivation, and action. So you get inspired to do something that gives you motivation to actually get to your computer and start doing something, which is the action. And he's talking about, I kind of like paused in the middle of this, but he is talking about the fact that it needs to be flip-flopped the other way. You take the action and then that gives you inspiration and motivation. You know, like, so the mere act of doing it, if you're, you know, a writer is always the example that I hear. You just sit down and you start writing. Sit down in front of your computer and start creating.
Philosophy,
yeah, sit down and
do it.
Because I have that problem all the time. I sit down and I'm like, oh, I got to work on this thing, the sports graphics package this week, and I'm like, man, I don't know where to start. I don't have that inspiration, but I just have been forcing myself, and I've been really productive. So that's about it. But I have one quick thing for Ravcock. What's your flavor?
What's your flavor?
Very good job.
What was
good
that?
Job.
Was that not loud enough? I'm sorry.
Not enough motivation behind it. See,
sorry,
you didn't have an inspiration.
It was very quiet this week.
Yeah. Actually, I was rendering some of this stuff out.
It's very deflated from all the Ravcock last week. You know, with all the Octane stuff.
True. Yeah, we kind of we're out of render stuff to talk about after last week, but the way that I measure my temperatures on my cards is, you know, I don't have EVGA cards, but I like their software. So I
Right.
use their temperature monitor, and I did not realize this because I thought it was rendering just fine and okay all the time when I would render stuff overnight. And I opened up my cards in the morning when something was like still rendering, and the temperature was at like 86 Celsius, and I was like, that is way too high. And I start looking into my software, and I'm even like cranking up the fans and the fans. Well, you want to set 83 as your max. That's why you have this temperature regulation, because otherwise, if you're running at 86 all the time, you're gonna burn your cards up pretty quick, and
maybe.
or a lot faster. And so I realized the EVGA software by default, there's a little checkbox that's hard to see in this weird obscure place, and even though everything's set to auto, it's not auto regulating the fans. Because I was like, why aren't the fans going? I was manually turning them up, even though it was set to auto. So there's this little hidden thing, and then it started working. I just thought that was weird that auto regulation of fans by default is not on. So I thought it was working the whole time. It was actually, the other times I used it was just staying at 83 because my renders weren't that long. But when I cranked overnight, it really got hot. So something interesting if you use that. And I'm sure they'll say their software is beta or whatever, but you know how that goes. So, Chris,
Yes.
render engines, you're a very technical Cinema 4D guy. So so I don't know how much you've branched into render engines. What have you tried so far, and like what are your thoughts on like these wars right now?
Oh, well, I was never the render person. I so infrequently bring something to completion. I tend to be more technical behind the scenes and just tinker around.
That's funny.
So most of my education was learning just enough Octane, Arnold, and Redshift simultaneously to build Lightkit Pro 3 for Grayscale Gorilla.
That's funny.
So just enough to be like, okay, I understand the basic render settings. I can make them all similar. A lot of this I did with Chad Ashley, like tuning things together. And that was most of my exposure. And obviously, it's something I want to get into more. And the Maxon announcing the acquisition of Redshift made it really easy to be like, okay, that's the one to go focus on. I'm going to start tinkering with that. So, but yeah, there's a lot to learn on those. And like, it gets to the point where I jump back into physical and I have to render something in GI, and I don't remember the basic render settings because you start spending time in another one.
Yeah.
So, but at this point, yeah, I'm just kind of on the Redshift train because that's where Maxon is heading.
Yeah, that's understandable. So tell us a little bit about your background. Like, did you grow up in Chicago?
I was born in New York, actually, about an hour out from New York City. And my grandparents were like in a burb of the city, and we drive up there. But yeah, we moved out to Illinois when I was 8, and I was an hour south of Chicago up until around college when I started coming up to the city more often, and then eventually moved to the city proper about 10 years ago.
Well, the topic that always comes up with people in Mograph is, what college to go to, if any. Did you study this in college, or were you studying something else?
It's not a simple answer because I was actually going to a local college and they didn't offer 3D, and a bunch of students had indicated that they would be interested in 3D. And the administrator for the computer graphics department, Mike Maddox, was awesome. And he's like, hey, I'm going to pick up some 3D software. We don't have an instructor right now, but I'm going to get the software. Here's the PDFs. This is before videos or YouTube or anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, here, like, I don't have a teacher, but you guys wanted, so go ahead, tinker, play around. Here's a box of donuts. Go nuts. And I was spending 40 plus hours a week just playing with Cinema 4D. Like, I'd get into the school early, play. I was a lab aide. I would just play straight through and learn more. And I was there for 2 years doing that. And the day I graduated, I was then hired to then start teaching it.
That's
nice.
So it is, I don't want to say it was a college education that taught me any 3D, but it wasn't the opportunity in college and having the time to dive deep and play and tinker and just push every single button.
Right.
So yeah, a little bit of a mix there.
What version of Cinema 4D was that?
That's got to be.
It was version 6 that we had in the lab.
That's got to be so difficult to learn. I mean, me personally, I'm a very visual person. I learned by watching your tutorials and stuff like that. Not by reading a manual. Reading a manual to me is like, it's almost like it's like reading calculus. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah. And I don't think they even had them as PDFs at that time. They had like little quick start PDFs. So you had the physical manuals, and that's back when
Cool.
cinema was changing version to version so much. So even while I was at school, we went from version 6 to 7 to 8, and 8 was a huge update that introduced thinking particles, and I think uh, I'm trying to remember. Like in version 6, you could not select more than one object at a time. Like
Oh,
if
jeez.
you want to brighten 10 different lights, you'd select one light, change the setting.
Oh.
You select the next light, change the setting. It was insane how much. But when I became an instructor, I would scare the students where I'd be like, "Hey, everybody, like here's the manual, and it's like an inch thick for Photoshop," and then I'd start slamming. It's like here's the basic cinema one, and here's the body paint manual, and here's the thinking particles manual, and here's the sketch and tune manual, and every single one stacked up taller till things like a foot tall. And it's like, and we have one semester to learn this. Let's go. So,
Wow. So you guys actually went into like body paint and everything like that?
it was usually a lot of touching on this part or that part, and then the last third of the class letting students go in the direction that they want to. So there wouldn't be much time spent on like UVs or body paint specifically. But if somebody's like, "Hey, I want to map this onto a character," then they could get some specific time, or be like, "Hey, everybody, we're going to talk about some UV stuff now." Or just keep on working on your project. You have to just give that kind of freedom. And the context of the class was always more like, hey, this isn't going to make you a 3D artist, but it's going to teach you if you're interested in 3D and if you want to go further your college education and start learning, go into video games, or maybe you find out that you really love modeling. So that was more of it, like a little bit of a taste of everything.
For sure. Yeah.
But along those lines, like you're saying, you're a visual person and you like learning via tutorials and whatnot. I mean, I would say most of my ability to make tutorials is because I had to learn manually by click, and I still do it now, where it's, when I go and I do my live streams, and it's like, okay, this isn't working in dynamics. Let's start A/B testing. Try this setting in isolation. Try this one in isolation. Okay, now we have an understanding of what this one does in the context of the other one, and that's just the way I like to learn things, is really understanding under the hood why. And I try and communicate that in all tutorials and live streams and whatnot. This is why we're clicking the button. Don't just click the button. Understand why you're clicking the button and why you're not pushing some other button.
I like that. And that's one thing that I really like about your tutorials, is that, like, sure, you can create a tutorial where it's like, okay, I'm going to show you how to do something, follow my exact steps, but being able to figure out why you're doing it and how to change that in order to incorporate your own personal style, that's what I like.
Yeah.
Just Kevin in the chat saying that he'd be a little bit freaked out if somebody slammed books on that table.
Yeah.
A little more context is I would do that, and then by the end of the first day of class, everybody would have rendered out an animation from start to finish of like a spaceship flying through a canyon that they made from scratch. So it's like, okay, you've gotten a little taste of everything. In fact, back at Greyscale Gorilla, I had recorded a tutorial, which was almost my first day of class type of tutorial, where it's like, okay, you've now made something you go show off, and everything from this day forward is using the same basic, like we did a little bit of modeling, a little bit of texturing, a little bit of lighting. Now let's just start improving and improving and improving on those different elements. So the basics are not that intimidating.
Yeah.
When you were there, I guess, what year was that?
2000.
2000. Okay,
Wow.
cool. Yeah, see, what's funny, in 2000, I was doing kind of the same thing you were in classes, except I was doing 3D Max at the time. I was not even aware of Cinema 4D at that point. But so 2000, you were there, and then let's talk about the rest of your journey to where you are now. How did you go from there to speaking at Maxon and Greyscale Gorilla and all of that stuff? Like, who did you meet? And like Chicago C4D, I'm sure, and had a lot to do with it, right?
I'm trying to think of the avenues. Actually, all of those things are effectively completely unrelated. So I finished 2 years at community college, and I did 1 semester up in a school in Chicago, and they were doing all these requirements where, because I didn't know how to make spreadsheets, I had to take an intro to computer class before I was allowed to do any 3D, and I was pretty much
so dumb.
I was like,
I
know.
So I was like straight up, screw this, and I didn't go back again. I was like, I'm done with that. I'm going to go pursue my career separate from that. I can learn this stuff quicker on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that by itself stopped me from continuing to go to any more college and just start spending more time learning.
Mhm.
And then from there, I was able to get essentially an entry level position where I was doing, they called it corporate theater. But it's like, imagine if Pepsi is doing a big show for all of their executives and their salespeople, and so it's almost like what do you call it? Like one of those one of like the singing TV shows where it's like a big stage production, but it'd just be for Pepsi or for Gatorade or something like
Mhm.
that. So I was doing all the previs for those. I would design them in Cinema 4D, in 3D, and then it would get transferred over to CAD, and then get the rest of the shop at Production Plus would physically build it out of wood and steel and do all the proper stuff. So I just kind of mock up what the clients were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
The good part of being at that job was, especially based on the person I was replacing, I was really fast. I was really fast with the software.
I believe that.
So effectively, what used to take 3 weeks, I was doing in 3 days. If it took 3 days, I was now doing it in 3 hours.
Yeah.
So it just gave me a lot of free time. And luckily back then, Reddit didn't exist. So I was spending all of my time learning more and more Cinema 4D, just clicking more buttons. And I started learning Espresso and a tiny bit of code. And I started using that to build tools to make my job even faster, to the point where like a client would be sitting over my shoulder and it'd be like, here's a stage, drag out the parameters. Here's a monitor. Oh, you want it to be LEDs instead? Like click a button, and it would just transform everything with like super like optimized settings. Everything would render really fast. This is going back a decent ways at this point, maybe 2006-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And I started learning more about, like, even more about cinema, more about Espresso, and it kind of established my love of making tools. Like any day I could be like, oh, I can add a new light type to my automatic truss structure. It's like, yes, I get to do that. I would just, at this point, do a feedback loop of creating better tools, which gave me more free time to create things faster, then to learn more. And that was also an amazing time to be able to be pursuing that.
Man,
So-
I bet when you left, they were upset.
I brought a replacement in, and they were able to learn all the tools I made for them and continue working. So it was, I didn't want to leave them in the clutch for that. So
Right.
that
Yeah.
worked. And so while I was there, I was also pretty active on what was the biggest Cinema 4D community that I know of, which was a CG Talk, which is now a CG Society. And it was a really cool forum. And I got to tell you, like these days, everybody's on Slack and Discord, and I love those for conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not feel like they are as good of a format for asking and archiving and making a searchable archive of questions like
That
forums.
is for sure. Yeah.
And forums are just
Archiving for sure.
dead
Yeah.
now. Like where you could go onto a forum and see the last 40 posts all listed. You'd be like, oh, that's interesting. That's not interesting. On Slack, it just go if you didn't see it in the first half hour, it's gone forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's too bad. But yeah, on that
Or
on
the
that
first
forum-
10,000 messages.
Right.
exactly.
Yeah. I always post stuff and I'm like, I don't know if anyone posted this because I'm not going to look through these 1,500 messages to find out.
Yeah.
You know?
Search for a word. Yeah. It just doesn't work. So it's too bad because it's completely cannibalized forums, I think. Most people have moved over to Slack, and yes, you can ask the same question again and again and again, and people answer again and again, but it doesn't have that archive.
Yeah.
But I spent lots of time there, like asking questions, answering questions, and so one day somebody randomly posted saying like, "Hey, is anybody in the Chicago area?" And then we ended up having a handful of people show up to a meeting in Chicago, and it was cool. There's like 7 or 8 people, and then it didn't really happen again. It kind of fizzled away. And a year later, in the Cinema 4D specific one, there started to be a conversation about Cinema 4D in Chicago. And at this point, I literally knew a single person in Chicago who did Cinema 4D besides myself. So we all met up at the Chicago Cultural Center, and there was 3 people. And it was like, hey, we showed up. Let's do it again. And we started doing it again and again. And we made a contact over at Columbia College, and they let us use a classroom. And me and my buddy Jack Bransfield would do this every single month. We're like, hey, there's a meeting. Maxon would come to town with some sort of roadshow or something. And it was like, hey, can we announce to your crowd that we've got a meetup in Chicago? And there's no template for this. Like nobody else was really doing Cinema 4D meetups that I know of. And we would just, for 2 years, we actually started this in 2010. For 2 years, we were at Columbia College, and it was me and Jack alternating doing a presentation to the crowd of people. and we're talking like 4 people, 5 people, 7 people, 3
Yeah, I was
people.
gonna say
people.
from that during that 2 years, how many people did you start with, and then how many people did you end with? I think I'm frozen.
No, you're good.
Fine.
Oh, with the stream, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
Dave, am I
keep
frozen?
going. Just keep going.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, so in Colombia, so we're at Colombia, and it started out really slow, and we just kept on, plodding along and doing little presentations, and then we started having a couple other people be like, "Oh, why don't you do a presentation about, you're doing these virtual gambling machines? Like, go and do a little talk about that." And eventually, so yeah, we're talking about like 2 years where we didn't break like 15 people. And we just kept on going.
Wow.
And then eventually a studio showed up, and they're like, "Oh, hey, we're a studio. We're going to come see what you guys are doing." And we had a couple of them start showing up. And the real breakout was when we had a couple of people showing up from studios, or they were hanging out and they worked at studios. We were like, "Hey, can you do a presentation at your studio? Can you host us?" And as soon as we did that, it started being like this exponential growth of like, "Okay, we're at the studio, now the studio." And then eventually it became a little overwhelming. So we started doing every other month.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And almost by coincidence, some people from the extended group wanted to start their own meetup as well, called Chicago Motion Artist Group, CMAG, and they took over our off month. So the first Wednesday of every month in Chicago was a meetup. So one was a drinking meetup, like go to a bar and just network, chat, and drink, and then Chicago C4D, where you'd see a presentation at a studio. And we just alternated. We've been doing that ever since for like 8 years.
Oh wow!
And
that's still going on.
Yeah, we still do. Yeah, we still do that every month, one or the other. And it's at the point where we often are trying to line these things up last minute. And the mill in Chicago will be like, "Oh, we can host," and we announce it a week beforehand, and then we have 100 people show up to the studio, no problem, with a week's notice.
Yeah.
So at this point, for me, knowing a single person who did Cinema 4D to like, I'm sorry, people, we have to have tickets now, at free tickets, but just so we can say we can't go above this threshold, because we always fill up time. So yeah, building up that community and just and making it so that there's more people that found us because they like Cinema 4D, but that meant there was a bigger pool of people who use Cinema 4D, which meant studios were more likely to start taking Cinema 4D on board because that's what the freelancers were using. And you created another loop there where it just grew and grew and grew. And yeah, pretty incredible.
I was actually pretty inspired back then to get a group of people going in Dallas, and I purchased dfwc4d.com years ago because I was just like, someday I'm going to use this, and eventually, we did. But we were doing only like 2 meetups a year because when we did them, it was that thing. It's where like we had big presentations, we brought in a lot of gear, we flew people in. And there's also something to that whole get together and do a beers thing, or just chat or whatever. And so when we did the one in Colorado in May with EJ's group in Denver, we really enjoyed that format. So we're trying to incorporate that. And with Camp Mograph going right now, there's so much going on that we weren't able to do a first quarter or second quarter DFWC 4D. And we already announced, we said we're going to do one in November, but we're going to try and do some beer meetups in between. So I think we're pushing around this idea here with EJ of doing like maybe in August, Dallas and Austin meetup. So we do Dallas one day and we do Austin the next day. So we're trying to work that, and it's just like beers and stuff because both of these things are fun, but when you go watch a person on stage, you don't get to talk to the other people.
Yeah, it's definitely a different crowd, One, it's in this industry is huge about networking, So I think that's a really good idea that you guys did, where you're doing the off months, where it's just like, you get to do a month of networking, and then 1 month you get to go see some talks. That's rad.
Yeah.
Well, you ever go to if you go to a presentation of some sort, or you could just tell everybody's there, and it's like you're waiting for a presentation to start. Everybody's standing around chatting and having a really good time, and then it's like, oh, everybody stop having a good time and hanging out and networking and chatting, and just sit down and listen to us. You can tell, like, people like networking. So honestly, like, a mix of those two is really good. Slightly different crowd, but 3/4 of the same people will show up to both.
Yeah. So you were doing that. You didn't meet Nick there. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. Nick, when we started doing the studios and started getting a little bit bigger, Nick showed up to actually the very first time we were ever at a studio. Nick showed up there, but him and I didn't talk at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that actually happened like 2 or 3 times. And I honestly, I always mix this up, but I think that him and I might have properly met at like, I think at NAB. So we met with Maxon instead of in Chicago, even though we both live in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then, but then the big step was we were doing a meeting, and we actually had the meeting in the big downtown Apple store because we didn't have a studio. So I was going to do a presentation, and by sheer coincidence, it was the meeting fell on the day that Maxon announced the new version and the demo was available. And I wasn't on the beta or anything at that time. So I was still at that same job, and I just spent all day learning the demo and all the new features. And that night I gave a presentation about R12.
That's funny.
And Nick was there, and I did a demonstration where I put dynamics and a motor on a car, and it jumped a ramp and crashed through some boxes. And then Nick comes up to me afterward, and he says, "Hey, can you re-record exactly what you just did for my website, Greyscale Gorilla?" I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So yeah, that began that. And then as far as building tools with him, that was another conversation that happened at NAB where he had already made LightKit, and he was talking about making a tool called CityKit. And he was pitching to me his idea for it. I was like, no, that's not. Don't build it like that. Like if you build it with Mograph, you do it this way, and you can make all these buildings, and they can scale up different. And he's like, that's great. You and me are working together on CityKit, and like the next day, as soon as first day at home, I built like a prototype of like was 50% of the final CityKit engine. And then we spent the next couple months like building buildings and figuring out the way the materials work and everything. But yeah, that worked really well. And so we launched CityKit together. It did well enough where I was like, you know what, I think I want to do more of this. And that's when I left the full-time job I had and started focusing full-time with tools with Nick. But what's crazy is I wasn't an employee at Greyscale Gorilla pretty much until like the last 2 years. I was actually an independent contractor for that all of those years prior to the end. I was there for 9 years, I think. So for 7 of them, I was an independent contractor, and we just did some sort of profit sharing on building the tools, and yeah, it was. I mean, I learned it at the previous job, but I loved making tools. So this just was amazing building up that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like it from your background at the other job. And then that's crazy.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just to me it's very satisfying because like I said, I'd never make final renders. It's so rare.
Yeah.
So to make a tool is to make something that just has a lot of potential, and then you put it out into the world, and you see people taking that tool and making something really cool out of it. CityKit's actually the best example, even though it's the oldest one I worked on, because for me anyway, I can very clearly see it. So suddenly Sports Center is on the TV. And it's like, oh, there's CityKit. And then there's advertisements for General Hospital. It's like, oh, there's CityKit. We're walking on the floor on NAB, and somebody's got this camera animation going. It's like, oh, more CityKit. So it's just like, wow, look at, and then and it peaked where CityKit was used in Iron Man's HUD when he's flying around in this Avengers movie. And it's like, oh, there's the building. Like I made those buildings there. Like I didn't work on Avengers, but I did make the buildings that were in the tool that made it to it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I made that polygon right there. So that's pretty cool. You living a little vicariously through the tools is very fun. So
you had to have a little tag in the movie, like in the credits, polygons provided by, so they need to. But you are fairly good at speaking. You're very outgoing, and I think there's something about this industry that gets people who may be introverted to be a little bit extroverted. I don't know what it is about like meeting up with fellow nerds or whatever it is that kind of gets us going. Did you have difficulty getting into that whole area, like speaking, being on camera, standing in front of a bunch of people at a podium, or were you always like that?
Oh no, I was as introverted and shy as anyone you've ever met. Like, and speaking to what you just mentioned, what I think makes this special is when a bunch of nerds hang out with each other, you can talk about that nerdy thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you put me in a room with a bunch of people I don't know, like plop me into the middle of a wedding where I know nobody except for like the groom, like I am going to be stressed out and anxious and kind of freaking out. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of this place. Like danger, run. But you bring me to SIGGRAPH or NAB or in a one of these meetups, and we can talk about Cinema 4D and nerdy stuff, and it just all of my anxiety just goes away in those contexts. And when it comes to things like public speaking, presentations, even recording a tutorial or a podcast, it's really just something that you get used to.
Yeah.
Like eventually you get used to seeing your own face, you get used to hearing your own voice, so it doesn't sound strange anymore. Everybody, when you hear your own voice, everybody's like, "Oh, I hate my voice," because it doesn't sound the same way coming through headphones as it does in your head.
Yeah.
But eventually you're like, "Oh, that's what I sound like to everyone else." You just get used to it.
Yeah.
But luckily I was able to ease my way into that, where I started teaching a class. And when I started, because I got hired straight out of it, I was teaching people who I had been a student with the previous semester. So
that's funny.
That was pretty casual. And I mean, everything's really friendly and open there.
Everyone gets A's all around.
That is a challenging part, is figuring out grading systems, especially in a community college. But doing that and then beginning the presentations at Chicago C4D in front of very small groups of people. That's not to say I wasn't terrified when I met Maxon. In fact, you asked how I had met Maxon, and I was going to SIGGRAPH every year, and the Production Plus was paying for me to go there, which was super awesome of them. And I had spent a lot of time in thinking particles, and I built this really, really elaborate tree growing rig out of thinking particles, like purely thinking particles, and it would grow an entire tree. Is like the most advanced thing I'd ever built up to that point. And I knew one person who worked for Maxon Germany via like online chat rooms and CG Talk. And there was a CG Talk meetup, and we went there, and I showed her what I had made, and she's like, "Oh, that's really cool. You should show this to Kai." And then so the next day I went to the booth, and she brought Kai over, and I showed Kai, and Kai's like, "Oh, this is really cool. You gotta show this to Rick." And he brought Rick over, and then Rick's like, "Oh man, this is really cool. You gotta show this to Paul." And I showed Paul, and Paul's like, "Oh man, this is really cool. You should come to dinner with us." And to me, it's like, oh, like I'm freaking out at that point. I don't know them. This is pre-Chicago C4D, I think, or maybe it's like the very minor meetups. So yeah, I was freaking out at dinner there. Like it like gave me a stomach ache. I was so freaked out being to dinner with them. But yeah, they started inviting me. But even easing in for the presentations, I did not present for Maxon right away. I spent the early years being at one of the booth, like what you call, like one of the pods, where I was just kind of there representing Maxon, there to answer people's questions and tell them what Cinema 4D was, and just essentially play with Cinema 4D on a screen and have people come over and ask what it does. So I got to do that for a couple of years before I ever did my first proper presentation for them. So I got to really ease in on that to the point where like I don't get the butterflies in my stomach for a Maxon presentation until like the 2 minutes before. Like once I start putting on the microphone, it's suddenly like, okay, now, but it's not like a day or a week or a month of worrying of it. So yeah, it just gets better and better as time goes. So.
Yeah, it's interesting what it takes to put on one of those shows. A lot of people who, especially the people who've never been there, all you kind of see is that little, rectangle window that's coming from the show floor live, and that's really all you see. And if you're not there and you're not involved, like you don't really know about all the other things going on, the technical aspects behind it, all the planning that goes in. I mean, good Lord, the people at Maxon spend a lot of time in the planning stages of a show like that. And
and if you don't think that they're already like, head over heels, like busy with SIGGRAPH right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, definitely. And maybe probably the next thing and the next thing after that, there's so much, and even just us going there, it's busy, because we're, working with them, and we're doing interviews, and we're doing, out presenting sometimes, or whatever it is. Like, there's a lot, and presenting like a 50-minute presentation, that's a long time, There's something more comforting about sitting in front of your camera doing a 50-minute presentation, or just winging a 50-minute presentation, because it's like, whatever, you screw up, but it's like, there's something about standing at that podium that's different, but it takes a long time to get over that. I think that's why there are some really good artists out there that just don't want to present anything, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I know Maxon has like asked a bunch of artists to come present, and they're just like, nope, sorry, I just, you know, or they agree to it, and then they're like, no, I can't do it.
well,
you know?
public speaking is supposedly the #1 fear over
Yeah,
death.
more than over death, which is crazy. But I have a lot of respect. I'm not going to name any names, but like even, you hang out with everybody at the Maxon booth and at dinners and everything. There are some people who are absolutely terrified to go up on the stage, and they do it anyway, and they'll knock it out of the, and and if you're off to the side, you might see like their foot like going,
Yeah.
but they fight their way through and present anyway, and that is, I mean, seriously, like it's most people's biggest fear. You are making yourself vulnerable in front of a group of people. That is
and
biggest mental block.
presenting. Yeah, I mean, when we did NAB, you know, I felt like all the stuff that I was presenting was just, you know, I mean, 2 other people were presenting the exact same thing that I was, you know, for the most part, just slightly different ways of going about it, you know.
Raid Zero
so
said he was terrified.
You feel like this, yeah, you just feel like this giant phony going up there being like, all right, let me show you how to use these tools. You know, I literally just learned this like 2 days before watching a Greyscale Gorilla Chris Schmidt tutorial, you know.
There's something about the community though that makes it a little more comforting. Like when you're there and the veterans, so to speak, will be like, no, you got this, you know, and the new people are always so nervous, and it's like, no, you got this, it's fine, and we're all gonna sit in the audience and watch you and judge you. No, we're gonna be there, we're there to help. When I did my first one, like I got hung up on something, like something wasn't working, and like there was a row of like 5 people in the front. We're like, you gotta check that checkbox, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool. You know, everybody's there to support each other. It's really nice.
Yeah. But man, the presentations though, like what a great crowd. Like and especially Matthias is the one at Maxon who ends up putting a lot of that show together, and he always finds incredible talent, like brand new people that, you know, it's almost like everybody gets their you got to prove yourself at the Maxon booth, and then suddenly you're getting pulled into other conferences and other talks and getting invited to the podcast because Maxon put you up on the stage because they put in the legwork to find all these amazing new people.
Yeah, they really support the artists.
Yeah, they do. Paul and Matthias, you know, I mean, they're such a, from the very beginning, from the first time we went to NAB and met them, like they were just the most friendly people.
Yeah, Paul
everyone else is as well.
Paul set a culture that I think is just reverberated through all of the world of Cinema 4D and motion graphics.
Completely agree. Yeah.
And has always done a great job of finding people to support that tone and vision, and it just filters down through everything. And that's something I was always really proud of when I was at Greyscale Gorilla, is that it was really big on people and learning and openness and a very positive tone, which is something that you just hear like other pieces of software or groups or even areas where it's just like people are very possessive, they're very they hold their knowledge really close to their chest, and things don't get shared, instead of a spirit of openness and sharing it. Let's have everybody be better and challenge each other. So
yeah, for sure.
So you have started Rocket Lasso, RocketLasso.com. You just finished, I think, your 13th episode the other day, something like that. Is that right?
So I got RocketLasso.com, which is the brand new company, and there's a whole swath of things I'm planning on doing with it. But a lot of it's kind of doubling down on all of my favorite parts of what I've been doing for years, which is making tools, making tutorials, having a really good community, having things be really open. As you guys know, trying to launch all the Mograph stuff and the rebrand, everything takes longer than you think it will.
Yeah.
So I could have spent a year preparing and getting a website ready and doing everything. Instead, I was like, you know what? I'm going to almost immediately start doing a live stream. Like all I need is a Twitter account and a YouTube account, and I don't need a big fancy website, and I don't need all these other details. I can immediately be doing a live stream. So I do Rocket Lasso live every Wednesday at 2:00 Central Time, and it's just 2.5 hours of anybody coming into the chat and asking some question about motion graphics or Cinema 4D. And usually it's like a link of like some amazing daily render somebody made. We try and reverse engineer it and figure out exactly how it was made and just put it out there and figure it out. And I like it's super great just for myself because I don't do a lot of freelance work. I do some, but not much. So this is my way of staying fresh and challenging myself. Is I've got a crowd of people watching. They're going to ask me a question live.
Yeah.
The pressure is on. Figure out how to make this, and even that's been like even fun and evolving. When I started out these 13 episodes so far, I ended up spending a lot of time like over those 2 hours, maybe only doing like 2 questions and kind of maybe bringing something a little bit more to completion. But then I had a couple conversations and I started shifting things to like, let's do more of our rapid fire. Let's answer more questions, just get to the meat of the question, like really get down to that special part where it's like, oh, that's new and unique. Let's figure that part out. And we don't have to worry about getting the final render ready. And then that way you can kind of get to more questions and get more little tidbits. And then maybe those little tidbits can spawn a bigger tutorial. But I was telling you guys,
do you find it in like do some of these like really influence your tutorial work? Well,
I was telling you guys very briefly already that I've come out with one tutorial so far with Aaron Colbert.
Yeah,
and it's just like a beast of a tutorial. We recorded for 6 hours. I trimmed it down to 2 hours. It was like a 6-hour recording marathon. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
And big thanks to you guys.
I want to see the unedited version of that. You should put that out.
But big thanks to you guys and Dave especially, because he was helping me figure out the tech and how I could be streaming someone to my computer and recording them. And but yeah, it was my first time doing a lot of editing and recording. But the point being is I really love that tutorial. I think it's really good information. I learned a lot in the process. Aaron was really great about sharing things. I hope you're going to see him with some stuff I'm doing. But it's kind of created this incredibly high threshold. And I've been trying to record some other tutorials, and I keep being, it's not as good as that one. And at a certain point, I'm like, you know what? I got to stop worrying about that and just sit down and record. So on Friday, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I was like, I told myself I was going to record a tutorial, so I started recording. And it's like I went to bed at like 2 a.m, but it's like there, I got something recorded.
Action before motivation. See, action before motivation. Yeah.
You sit down and hit the record button, even if you're not ready, and you're going to everything suddenly becomes very clear because you can be pre-planning and planning it. It's like, oh, I should do this and do this and do this, but you go, oh, I hit record. Whoa, I actually need this, this, and this. So the first, usually a run through, it's going to be terrible, but then you can immediately start again and be like, okay, I know what I was missing. I had to prep this file, get this in the right place. Okay, now we can go through it. But
one thing that I've noticed with, especially with you having so much knowledge of the subject, when you're going through and explaining something to someone, you can very easily say why you're doing it and how you're doing it and what the purpose behind it is because you have that knowledge. It's not so much, oh, I've watched this, so I'm just going to regurgitate the information,
That's if I couldn't do that, I wouldn't make tutorials. And it's a big challenge for me when I'm trying to learn some other skill. Let's just say I'm doing my go-to example is still Unity. A couple of years ago, I spent a bunch of time in Unity just making a little game for myself. And I went through a lot of different people who made tutorials before I found someone who would do something and explain why he was doing it instead of just do this. And that's Quill 18, and he's still making stuff, and it's amazing. And he's just that kind of educator. And I realized how not only did I naturally teach that way, but that's what I sought out in teachers. And nothing's more satisfying to me than when I'm doing something live or unrehearsed, and I go, "We're gonna do this wrong." Because it's very likely that you will fall into this trap. So I'm going to do it wrong, explain why it's wrong, and then we'll do it the right way because there's this giant pitfall that you're very likely to fall in. And to steep myself in so much Cinema 4D to anticipate what is likely to be a problem, explain why it's bad, and then go forward with the proper way is just like, okay, that's good information. Like I really feel like
that really is. And then the next time someone does it wrong, they're like, "Oh yeah, now I know exactly why." It's great.
Nothing's worse than like create a cube, type in 200, type in this, type in 50. It's like, but why? Why are we doing these things?
Yeah.
Speaking of doing things on the fly, I don't usually do this, but I have to go to the restroom. So y'all keep talking about Rocket Lasso, and I'll be back.
Well, here's something that I'll switch over to, because I wanted to ask this, but then we got into another subject. So doing these Chicago C4D meetups and stuff like that, eventually I'm assuming that merged into HalfRez.
Yeah, actually, largely it did. We were at a meetup, and somebody who was a member of the meetups worked at a movie theater in Chicago, and they're like, "Hey, we could have a meetup at the theater." And then we
Mhm.
were like, "Whoa, that would be super crazy!" Like, and we started thinking, "He's like, well, that shouldn't be a normal meetup. We should do something big and
Yeah.
special." And the idea started growing. We're like, oh, let's do a special big blowout event. Essentially, it's a big Chicago C4D, and we'll do it once a year. We'll do a big one. And so we started bringing on some different people we thought would be really, really able to add to that. So we immediately were talking to Maxon and Paul and Matthias, and then we talked to Nick, obviously from Greyscale Gorilla, and he
Right.
immediately was on board, and he was going to be MC. And yeah, we just started planning it. For the most part, it was me and Jack and Nick putting it together. We'd have meetings and just build it up. And the first year we had it above a bar, and we had 72 people show up, which was the biggest meeting we'd ever had at that point.
Yeah.
And then the next year we had a fire code limit of like 128, and we had to turn away like 40 people at the door.
Wow.
And we're like, holy crap! Like, this is insane. Like, I didn't know that we'd have this many people. And we were like, it's not a good thing that this happened, but it was also kind of cool where it's like, oh wow, we're turning people away at the door. Like, I think we might have made something special here.
Yeah.
And so, so year after year, we were going to a bigger venue and growing it more and more. And we started making, it's just really fun. If you're not familiar with what HalfRez is out there, it's just it's a big one night mini conference where it's simultaneously a big drinking meetup and a bunch of presentations up on stage, lots of prizes and games. And I've always made it my personal goal to use Cinema 4D each year. I try and use Cinema 4D in some absolutely absurd way that's completely impractical.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
It's one of my favorite things about HalfRez is like, what was it, 2 years ago when you and Ivan created the things where you actually had to press on your phone, and we were doing DDoS attacks, basically causing everything to fail. Well, I'm sure you were thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, what is going on? What did we get ourselves into? The rest of us are like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. I can't believe this actually happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun. The first year I made a flight simulator in Cinema 4D as my presentation. Second year, we had a live feed from Twitter feeding into Cinema 4D and projecting up on the wall. So if you hashtagged HalfRez, it would pop up on the wall inside of Cinema 4D live, and it would take your icon would go on there, and it would have colors from it.
I remember that.
And then every year we've done the cube races, which are like a live race of cubes hopping away, doing an obstacle course, and it's just super fun. This last year we made a video game. One year we essentially made Smash Brothers, but it was like two cubes fighting each other with Xbox controllers.
Awesome.
It was really fun. I'll send you guys a link to like the highlight video. It was HalfRez Cinema Smash.
Nice.
And that was really fun. And then last year I made a pinball machine, or I physically built an entire cabinet.
That was so great.
That was amazing.
Yeah, put some TVs inside of it, and I took my tower and I made a pinball machine. And my buddy Mike in Chicago, who's on the HalfRez committee now, he made it so that you could push real buttons, and I would send in an input, and you play pinball, but it's Cinema 4D playing live, but in the cabinet. So that's super fun. And that'll be coming out again for this year with the next version of that game.
Cool.
Pinball 2.0.
How do you guys find the people to present?
It's been a different process every year because it keeps on evolving. So, HalfRez was always a kind of a big community event. It was mostly Chicago C4D, and Greyscale Gorilla was heavily involved. But 2 years ago, Greyscale Gorilla pulled out of it, and so we started going separately with it. So it was me and Jack, and we made a committee in Chicago of some of our favorite people, some of the community leaders, and we started putting it together. So now we we can each nominate individually who we think would be cool, and then we go and do an online call like this, and everybody will kind of pitch their person to everybody, and then we'll convert that and we'll vote on who we think would be cool. So some people will know people because they saw them in a different presentation. It's pretty common for people to pull people into these lists because we saw them present at the Maxon booth.
Yeah.
And very often somebody will have made a really cool project and their profile is growing, and that's how Maxon finds them. And we'll also hear about them. But it's cool. SIGGRAPH always happens, so we'd be like, oh, they're also a good presenter. Now we can bring them on board.
Yeah.
So it's really fun and kind of organic. We always try and find local talent to present. One year we had a brand new company, Run Kick Shout, and they'd only started a year before, and it was like, hey, can you do a presentation about leaving a studio and starting your own company? And it was like so fun having the two of them up on stage and riffing off of each other. That was really fun. So
for sure. I loved Bhakti last year. Bhakti was great.
Yeah, she was really good.
Yeah.
Although, this year we're making sure we can have a podium that can adjust, because it sucks that nobody can see her behind this giant podium that we had. By the way, we do have the presentations recorded, and those are going to be coming out soon. HalfRez this year is going to be on September 18th. The tickets are not quite available yet, but you can go to halfrez.com and sign up, so you'll get an email when they're available. It's going to be really cool. There's been a bunch of new work done on the website this year, so if you guys don't know, we also introduced last year studio tours, and the studio tours are going to 3 different studios in Chicago and having a little mini presentation from each of them, and you get in this little trolley and get to go around the city, and that's really cool. But we can only put 30 people on that because studios can't fit that many people,
right?
So those tickets go like instantly. But if they're available in the beginning, those will be purchasable right when you get your HalfRez ticket, but you're also going to be able to order your t-shirt at the same time. That way, it's always been such a nightmare figuring out exactly how many t-shirts to produce. You guys should know that. You're like the t-shirt experts.
I mean, we're closing out our Camp Mograph ticket sales a month before the actual event, specifically because we need to know how many t-shirts to print, how many banners to do, all this other stuff, how many hacky sacks to order.
See, that right there made me want to go to Camp Mograph more than anything else you've ever said.
There you go. Here's something that I'll say that you do really well, and that I'm mad that I didn't think about this, and I don't know if this was intentional for you guys when building out HalfRez, but when you're putting the people who are also coming to HalfRez, if you see the people who are coming to HalfRez, you're like, oh, now I gotta go, because just to see the people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that was our whole inspiration with bringing on camp counselors and stuff like that, is so that you get to hang out with some of these cool people and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this year we've got a brand new MC. It's going to be someone from Optimus, John Desir. Really excited about that. It's gonna be really cool. And then we've got all of the presenters figured out, but I'm allowed right now to mention one of them, and that's going to be Nick Denbor, better known as Smearballs. He is going to be presenting at HalfRez. It was really, if you're not familiar again, something that's really cool about HalfRez is it's really laid back. The presenter is going to have a drink in their hand. So everybody's drinking and having a fun and a good time, and people are allowed to swear and just kind of, it's just, there's a fun open a fun open vibe on everything that I just really love. It's always this really interesting clash of like, there's a lot of people there to drink and network and hang out, and they never leave the bar section. And there's people who come in and sit down in a chair and never get up and watch every presentation. And people are floating back and forth between there, and then coming in for the prizes of the cube races or all the different parts. And it's just such a great, crazy amalgamation. Literally every year since the second year, we've had conversations. It's like, oh, should we extend this to be longer, a multi-day thing? Let's get some classes going. And it's always like, It turns into such a bigger ordeal of like, we need people to run that. We need to rent additional venues. We need to get people from one location to another. Are we going to feed them lunch? It's like there's a million questions instantly on that, and we would love to do it. And one day we're going to find a person who will be in charge of that aspect of it. But as it is, we've grown bigger and bigger every year. Last year, I think we are over 400 people.
Wow.
And it's just one night, like, cram it all in conference party thing. There's a lot of people now who, we always do it on a Wednesday. A lot of people take Thursdays off now, where it's like, nope, I can't go to HalfRez and go to work the next day. It just doesn't work.
See, we always fly in the day before, and then we'll get a Airbnb right next to the venue, and then just have everyone come over. We'll do a podcast, we chill, we have a good time,
go have dinner, and we head over,
go have dinner,
That's
eat a lot of Lou Malnati's,
there's a lot of good food in
just
Chicago.
super backed up because of all the cheese.
Yeah. And then this year, Maxon is doing a road show, and I think there's going to be, I can't get too specific, but I think there's going to be a Chicago event that is close enough in to the date of HalfRez that somebody could come in and kind of do a little vacation in Chicago in between and kind of go to both. So that would be really cool.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Smearballs is in the chat. He says, I wasn't told that I had to drink.
You don't have to drink, but you're going to feel the peer pressure when everybody else went up and drinks.
Yeah.
I have presented drunk before, so I've had to cut back and give myself some rules. Where it's like, okay, no drinks until, just one drink until after my responsibilities have kind of wrapped up.
Chris Schmidt is my favorite drunk.
You put a cube in the viewport and you're like, what did you say? What? You don't know me. So it's like, you were teaching us Mograph? Oh, yes, that's right. Okay. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, well, you guys, what's funny is I don't drink very often. I drink once a month when I go to a meetup. Where it's like, oh, we're at the bar meetup, I'll have some drinks there. It's the only time I drink. But then when I go to NAB and I go to SIGGRAPH, then we got this whole crew and everybody's amazing, and there ends up being a bunch of hangouts and parties, and so you end up drinking every night. And because I'm so comfortable with this crowd of people, there's even like a phrase where it's like, oh, it's like there's Vegas Chris. There's like the Chris that comes out in this situation, not here. And you guys, you guys planned it perfectly, but you guys planned that karaoke party for after the pinball.
Oh man,
and the timing of the timing on all of stuff was brilliant, by the way. Whereas like right as the pinball party ends, like limos pull up for everybody to climb into to go straight to this venue. That is brilliant planning.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's fortunately or unfortunately, but there were open bars in the limos.
Yes.
We planned that. Yes.
Yeah. As a limo, we polished off a bottle of Jameson, I think.
Yeah.
And then there's another bottle of Smirnoff that ends up coming in with us. And then at that point, I was not of sound mind enough that when we were at karaoke and we were getting served sake, the sake came in bottles that look like beer bottles. So I was drinking sake as if it was beer.
Oh gosh.
So there's a point in karaoke where I'm like up singing a song with everybody, and there's like this great crowd of people. It's so much fun. I was like, I'm not gonna sing, and I sang like every song, but I'm up singing a song, and then suddenly I wake up and I'm in my bed. And I was like,
gosh.
Uh-oh.
What exactly happened?
So
wow.
So
but you would never know. Like the next day, you were just like, "Hey, everyone, how's it going? What's up?"
Yeah.
Happy-go-lucky Chris Schmidt.
Yeah. I had like booth detail at like 10 o'clock the next day or something, which isn't crazy early. But I go there, and person after person walks up and they put their hand on my shoulder. It's like, "Are you okay? What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Oh God, what did I do last night?"
That's funny.
That was a dangerous one. The only saving grace here is that I'm a friendly drunk.
Yes, you are. That is for sure.
That's true.
Sure.
That's true.
One of like, so the first HalfRez we went to, you invited us to your house to hang out. You know, Unplanned,
party.
yeah. With just screaming to get more ice and like jamming the ice
No,
thing
the
and waking
the
everyone up.
I have roommates. Yeah. Well, that's because
Yeah.
it was
yeah.
completely unplanned. So I have roommates who didn't think anyone was coming over. Not
That's
only
funny.
that, I don't often host people. So while
Right.
I had alcohol in the place, I didn't have glasses to serve
Oh,
it
yeah.
in. So people were drinking out of like giant coffee mugs. They're like
Uh-huh.
drinking bourbon out of coffee
And
Uh-huh.
cereal
mugs and
bowls. We had bourbon and
cereal
Yeah.
cereal
bowls.
bowls.
Yeah. So
It's
that was
it
great. The
was
next
one
year,
of my favorite nights in Mograph because like we were hanging out with Paul Babb and you and EJ was there
Andrew
and
Kramer was
was it
there.
Andrew
Kramer.
Kramer, you know, and yeah, it was so cool. It was such a cool night. And like there's a video that I've got of myself where I'm just like, you know, it's like a selfie and I'm going around the room and there's all these like amazing people in this industry and I'm just like, I can't even believe I'm here. That's crazy.
Yeah, that
You
that
know?
was a crazy night. So
Yeah.
you can't plan that kind of thing. In fact, it only
Yeah.
works
No.
because it wasn't planned.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody was asking, I think it was Lucas in the chat was asking where to stay, like what area if going to Chicago, and we usually stay in an Airbnb that's near the venue because then we can
Yeah.
it's a great area for one, but then we can walk around and do whatever, maybe go play arcade games and then just walk over to the venue.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it's the same venue. I could say it's the same venue as last year. So we're at Chop Shop, First
Yeah.
Ward, and dang it, I'm so bad at neighborhoods. Part yeah.
Is it in the Lincoln Park area?
I was going to say Lincoln Park. It might be the heart of Lincoln Park right there. It's like right
Yeah.
where the blue line crosses like the 6 points. It's really, but it is like an amazing, fun area. So that's definitely where to grab an Airbnb or a hotel and
Yeah.
a good time. And yeah, this year it is in the same venue as last year, but we pretty much maxed out last year. So there's a good chance that next year we have to
Wicker
go
Park.
venue hunting. Wicker
Wicker
Park.
Park.
There you go.
That's
Wicker
right.
Park.
Yeah, I was like, Lincoln Park's a little further north. Yeah. Yeah, Wicker Park. So it's a good time.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
always good. And this year's going to be good. I'm really excited about the presentations we've got put together. It's always good on us when it's the same venue a second time because a lot of things are figured out earlier and we can put the date in right away. And you can't plan anything until you have the date because you can't get
Yeah.
presenters until you know when they're coming out. You can't do
Yeah.
anything. So that
And
always helps.
I assume it's tough around that area because I mean we are, you know, when we were booking the time for Camp Mograph, we're like, well, you know, SIGGRAPH and then HalfRez and then
Node Fest.
you've also got
and-
Node Fest
yeah.
and you've got Blend Fest and you know all these other ones. It's like it's jam packed near the end of the, you know, near the end of the year.
Yeah.
You know,
That's true.
so I don't know.
What's always helped out for us, and people are always like, well, why don't you have it on a weekend? It's like we can't afford a weekend. Like, we're
Right.
renting out. Yeah, we're renting out concert venues.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't go there on a Saturday or a Friday.
Yeah.
Like we can do a Wednesday though. So and I don't know. It always ends up where Wednesday is just a night that people can go do things. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mondays are too busy. Fridays people have plans, but Wednesdays people can go do something on a Wednesday.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's why we do stuff on Thursdays. I think originally when we were starting the idea of DFWC4D, Barton Damer was actually like, no, you need to do this on a Thursday. We're like, a Thursday, really? He's like, yeah, well, because people have plans on Friday. People do things on the weekend. And honestly, a lot of people, if they're local, they're leaving work and going straight to your thing.
Yeah.
Where, you know, they won't do, if they go home, if they have to go home first, they're not going to make it back out. They're not going to do it.
Yeah.
No, definitely. No, if you get to go in your house and you know, take off
Sit
your
down.
shoes,
Yeah.
like you are not getting up again.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got some time. Yeah, there's a lot of little tiny details that definitely make all the difference when it comes to planning and running a meetup. So
What is it?
that's a good.
What's the balance now with that? Like with the popularity of Chicago C4D HalfRez, like is there like a ratio of people who are coming from other places as opposed to who's local now? Like, is it mostly people flying in for the event now, or is it still a lot of Chicago?
You know what? We don't really poll in any kind of way to see exactly the way it breaks down. I think you kind of get like an exponential fall off. Like the closer you are to the city, the more likely you are to be there. But then people come down from a bunch of people come over from Milwaukee or from the surrounding states
Detroit,
where they
yeah.
can drive over really, Detroit and over from St. Louis. Like people can come over really easily. And as you go further and further away, we'll have a lot of people come in from New York and Florida and LA, California in general. And then you get people who will plan a big trip and fly over from Europe and
Yeah.
that's when it gets like super nuts. It's like what? Like, but they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, they come and they do like the architecture tours in Chicago.
That's
which are
where
like
we met
supposed to
Phil
be
for the first time. Raid Zero.
Yep.
You know, he came over from the UK.
Across the
It's
pond.
like, oh, this is what you look like.
Yeah. Meeting people where you only know their icon or their avatar is always the freakiest thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really kind of humbling when you have this many people come out for this type of event. And honestly, one of the trickiest parts we have is trying to balance out our presentation schedule because there's a lot of people who want to come and learn. So you gotta have a mix of like really nitty gritty practical information and then somebody who can talk more aspirational or about the state of the industry, because there's been years where we didn't quite get the balance right, where it was more, too many high-minded concepts and nobody actually opened up After Effects. And that's what, people want to get their hands dirty on things, a little bit. So you gotta find that balance. And every year we learn a little bit more than the year before. Every year more people come. So it's just pretty incredible the way those things slowly grow and snowball, and how you can still kind of hold the reins of it and be like, okay, like this is a thing that is pretty amazing. I think one of the most satisfying moments of my life, honestly, was there's one of the HalfRezes, and it was a particularly difficult one to put together. It was like a new venue and everything, and there's that moment when it's like, okay, all the signage is up, people are lining up outside, like the presenters are here, like there's nothing left for me to do. Like I grab a drink and just be like, wow, like look at this thing that now exists.
Yeah.
And just like a moment of pure satisfaction.
Yeah. And seeing that line, I'm sure just gives you like swells of pride,
That's every year I have to run out and like high five the entire line. I just love the line.
Yeah.
It's a unique thing for me. I don't follow a lot of musicians or anything. Like going to see Deadmau5 with you guys is one of the few times that's like, and to be able to build that kind of thing, but for the world of motion graphics, it's so
right?
Freaky. It's like such a great community of people.
Yeah, and then
EJ's wife calls it nerd famous.
Yeah. Nerd famous. Yeah, there's something. It's weird. It turns us into event planners. When we didn't realize we were going to be. And, it's like...
And that's a completely different, unrelated in every way skill set.
The
thing about motion graphics prepares you for trying to figure out what food is going to be served.
I'm trying to figure out, like, logistics of travel and budgeting and...
Who's going to pick people up at the airport.
Ticketing and... Oh, man. Oh, and then you've got to do all social promotion stuff. You got to learn... You gotta learn what the kids are doing these days on the Instagrams. How do you do a story again?
Like seriously, I like look up tutorials on how to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, even this year on the committee, we were doing a much better job of delegating tasks out and letting people run little subcommittees. We're going to have more student volunteers this time. There's some ideas of getting some students involved in helping with the social media part of it, just because they're naturals at it.
Was it hard for you to let go of some of those tasks? Because I get called out for this all the time with the Camp Mograph folks, where it's like I just want to keep on taking on more and more and more, because I sometimes have a hard time just, this will take me 10 minutes, but if I keep on doing more and more things that are 10 minutes, then my whole week is taken up by Camp Mograph stuff.
There was exactly. There was a year where I think that became unsustainable. But if you put the right people around you, it's actually pretty relieving to delegate to someone who is going to do a good job. And if you did it really well, you're going to delegate it to someone who's going to do a better job of it than you ever could.
Yeah.
So like we've got Rachel on the committee, and she is just the most perfectly organized person who like can build lists and schedules and have everything laid out perfectly. And it's like, I am the worst at that. It's like there's comments I should be responding to in the planning Slack channel from 5 days ago, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go check the Slack channel. I'm doing so bad at this. And but like she's organizing it, and then there's somebody else is in charge of making sure the videos get put together, and then somebody's plans to travel for the presenters coming in. And so that sort of delegation was absolutely wonderful. Now, if I was passing off to people, I was like, ooh, I don't know if it's going to turn out too well. I might freak out a little bit more, but literally every time it's been given off to somebody, they've done a better job on it than I could have done. So that helps a long way.
Yeah. French Monkey is saying he went through that last year, catering and all. He said, I didn't sleep that night, and it was hard through the day, but all went pretty well, thankfully. And Matt, you asked him when he's going to be on the show. We were actually talking. It's a bandwidth issue. And so I guess he's got to move before he can.
Okay. I know all about that.
But soon. And then Sage says, well, we met Sage at HalfRez for the first time. Yeah. That's right.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And then Nick Campbell's in here. He says, it's Chris. Can't wait to see you at HalfRez.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah. So, okay, I don't think you mentioned this. Is there a date that you can say yet that tickets will be on sale, or do we not have that information yet?
We don't have the sale day. Honestly, it's getting the last of the website put together. And then here's another big trick you were asking about, where people come traveling in from, is we try and make it so that our local people can get like the early bird discount. And so it's actually pretty tricky to set up a website where you can tell a group of people who show up to a meetup, or maybe in the Chicago Slack channel, be like, hey, the tickets are available. 48 people showed up to the meetup, so here's 48 tickets for early bird price. Because everything it sells out so quickly.
Yeah.
We had those new studio tours last year, and we were like, oh, I don't know if we because we have it's costing money to do this. It's like, I don't know how much we should charge. And then they sold out in like less than 24 hours. It's like, oh, I guess those are popular, and we probably underpriced them. So
right.
Yeah.
And it's not even like literally nobody makes a profit from HalfRez. It's purely a community event. We just filter all the money right back into it to make the next year better. Nobody takes any money home. I mean, we hire like videographers and whatnot, but anybody, like everybody's a volunteer. So that part of it is really great. And I like that we don't have any of that financial motivation. We are purely doing this because we thought an event like this should exist in Chicago.
Yeah, and that's the way it was with our DFWC4D meetups. Like, I mean, we've probably spent well over $10,000 over the past couple of years just flying in people and putting them up and feeding them and buying gear and stuff like that. And it's like, all this is just, to build a community.
Yeah, so. but it's fun, and it's completely proven to be worth it all the way through.
Yeah.
So
meetups are a hard thing to do, but I encourage people to do it. Like, if you're in some hopefully not too obscure area, but somewhere that's not known for its motion graphics, you could probably find people. It's sometimes it's just they're there. It's just really hard to pull them up out of the woodwork, or how to get a hold of them. So. Yeah,
even that, like start a Slack channel with local people, and then once a decent number of people are in that Slack channel, then you say, hey, let's go to a bar and do a meetup, or let's do a presentation over at my studio. And now you can start it out. You can skip the 2 years that Jack and I had to deal with, where we had like 5 people, and you can guarantee you've got a group already. So the tools now are amazing.
Studios are always welcome to have people, and bars especially too. I mean, you're just giving them free money. By having, I mean, that's the one thing I like about the venue that we use for DFWC4D. It's like we've got an actual projection or projector, along with screens and stuff like that. And it's like they let us use it for free because we're just bringing in people when there would normally be no one.
Right. There'd probably be like one guy shooting pool in the corner or something if we weren't there that night.
And he's still there shooting pool.
Yeah, he still comes.
Yeah,
you hear during the meetup, people are talking, and you're watching the video after the fact, and you hear like these random like pool breaks in the background. Because there's a couple guys who have to be there.
Something that's been curious. I haven't had to deal with it too much because most of the Chicago C4Ds are at a studio, but especially the CMAG meetups where you'll inform a bar. It's like, hey, there's I've got a group of people. It's just a group of individual people, and we're gonna come. I'm giving you a heads up in case you need a new bartender. And most places are like, oh, that's amazing. Thanks for the heads up. Like, we'll have an extra 2 bartenders there. It's going to be great. But some places are like, well, if you're going to do that, we're going to charge you for being a party and you have to rent out the entire venue and do this. It's like, hey, listen, I'm bringing people to your business. They're each individually buying drinks. Like, how about I don't give you the courtesy call and I just show up with 40 people? Like, 'cause that's what I could have done.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a really interesting, like, balance there.
If you can find a place that's like, we looked for some places, especially when we outgrew the first venue. We were looking around, and there's some places that want all this money, you know, but there are so many places that don't want any money. I mean, we come in and we usually get sponsors. You know, usually like Maxon will do something like sponsor all the drinks. Well, you can guarantee every person a free drink when they come in and they get those tickets, and the bar is going to make a guaranteed, you know, X number of dollars off of those tickets, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I think the motion graphics community are heavy drinkers.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
So yeah, at one of the years in HalfRez, because the way the venues work usually is you have to meet a food and bar minimum, and if you don't, you have to just pay that money out of pocket.
Yeah.
And we were wrapping up the night, and we was like, hey, did we hit the minimum? Are you guys happy with the drinks sold? And the owner was like, yeah. We're happy. Like, yes. Like, we've had their bars like run out of beer from our crowds. It's like, okay, we're like, don't worry, we can hit that minimum, no problem.
It's Beeple, double fist and Coronas.
Yeah, all the Corona. Real quick though, I want to do a quick shout out for before we get away from it, in some of the Rocket Lasso stuff that we were talking about earlier. We kind of veered away. But I want
Dave had to go to the bathroom.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's a good excuse. But a couple of things that are happening right away is tools are being worked on, which I'm excited about, but I like the philosophy.
I'm really excited to see what you've got coming out.
I know.
Yeah. Well, I think I might have told you guys in person what we're working on. I don't remember.
You haven't told me.
I don't.
No.
But
wait until after the show, and then you tell me.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't like making that kind of stuff public. I don't like. Everything takes longer than you think it will, so I don't want to promise it's like this thing, and then suddenly get a bunch of people being like, "I need that tool right now."
Yeah.
But we're working hard on a suite of tools actually, which should be exciting. Not something we've ever tried before, and looking forward to that. Then, like I said, I have the live streams every Wednesday, answering Cinema 4D questions, and then tutorials. So everything Rocket Lasso. So YouTube/Rocket Lasso, RocketLasso.com, Rocket Lasso on Twitter, Rocket Lasso on Instagram, all the Rocket Lassos everywhere. We've also got a Slack channel, which is really great. What's really cool is I was doing the old live show, and an independent community kind of built up around the live show, and they kind of started branching off their own thing. So I talked to some of the people over there, and then talked to the entire group, and we transferred the entire thing over to join Rocket Lasso. So there's the official Rocket Lasso Slack channel, which is just, and then right now you can go to RocketLasso Slack.com to get a login to come on in there, and we've got well over 1,000 people already in there hanging out. There's cool projects going on, like chain projects where people are kind of working together on a big project, and little contests and for building things. So that kind of stuff is really fun. But it's been really great. Right now I'm trying to kind of fill in the gaps while we're building stuff with a Patreon, which has been really fun coming up with it. So I do like a bonus stream where I'm trying to do some longer form projects, which is proving challenging. In the live streams, like I said, I like doing like snappy questions, like let's get to the meat of it. It's like, oh, I'm gonna do a bonus live stream where eventually, if anything good comes out of it, I'll make proper tutorials out of it.
Yeah.
But it's turned into, okay, we're going to spend as much time as it takes to do something. And then I start running into limitations of what I wanted to do. So I started doing all these projects where sand was involved. But as soon as I want to ramp it up, it's like, oh, it starts going so slow. And I was doing all this stuff with magnet particles, like little iron filings. And I got some really cool stuff going. But as soon as you're like, you know what, I need 10 or 100 or 1,000 times as many particles or clones. And it's like, it's not going to work, like exponentially slower. So that's actually proving surprisingly challenging.
Getting into that Houdini territory right there, man.
I was going to say, I was just about to say, like, I find that on lots of your live streams and stuff, people will be like, how did they do this? And a lot of the time the answer is Houdini, but you're like, screw this, screw Houdini. Let's figure it out how you do it in Cinema 4D. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's kind of shocking how many of them are in Houdini. Houdini is it's an interesting question. I struggle with that a lot. I spent essentially a long weekend in Houdini not that long ago, where I was doing my typical thing. The way I like to learn is open something up, just start clicking around, like, oh, like make a mess, do this. Like, let me see if I can make a cube and a sphere and throw dynamics on it and see if it works. And then it's like, oh, I did, it worked. It's that was decently intuitive. And once I've kind of pushed around the edges of the cage, it's like, okay, let's start watching some tutorials. Let's read a little bit. But now I have a context in which I learned. And very quickly, it was like, okay, this is clearly impressive. You can do some crazy stuff. But you cannot, I don't really think you can be a casual Houdini user. I think you're kind
Right.
of, you're all in
Yeah.
or you're not doing it at all.
I agree.
And then part of it just goes to, like how many people, like while it's an absolutely amazing tool and you can do incredible things, and I think my brain would just like completely glom onto it and go nuts. Like it's if you're going to use Houdini, that means you're almost instantly a technical director now. Like you
Yeah.
are building your own tools. Like in Cinema 4D, most people don't know how to use Espresso, and Espresso
Yeah.
is like the most basic level of becoming like a TD type of thing. You're building rigs now. And then it gets to the next step where you're doing some code, and then you can go deeper and start making plugins. But in Houdini, it's like you're already like 2 or 3 levels deep to do it at all. So you can't be a casual user. And so at that point, it just goes to like how many people, like I couldn't make a tool. I could not make a living by making a tool and selling it to somebody in Houdini because they're going to make their own tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it makes it really difficult to figure out where to spend your time. But I do feel that draw into Houdini.
Did you tweet about that when you were trying it out? I'm just curious if you got like, oh my gosh, like Chris he's switching over, like, like David Ariev, whenever he tried out Redshift, everybody's like, oh my gosh, he's switching from Octane to Redshift, the sky's falling.
Yeah, but that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure on people.
Yeah.
Like even for him, like I can see people freaking out and saying the sky is falling. Other people being like, finally, but now they're gonna be like,
Yeah.
hey, wait, what you started using Octane again? What happened to Redshift? And that's like it's like I said, announcing a plugin before it's done cooking, where it's like people have this expectation for it. And I knew that I was just there to tinker around in Houdini, and there's a chance that I would like take off on it and go nuts, but there's also a really good chance that I wouldn't be terribly interested, or I would just tinker. So I don't want to set those expectations.
Yeah.
So honestly, I'm a pretty private person on a lot of things, unless I get really drunk and I'll tell. But I mean that even on the basic level, like I am like, this is actively a thing about the community or about what I'm learning or where I might go in the future. And until I'm very confident in the direction I'm heading, I do not talk about it. I don't mention it. I don't tweet it out. And and if I talk to people in person, then conversationally, I'll tell people what I'm working on. But I don't want it out in the world in a big way. So
Right.
if I had said, "Hey, I'm playing with Houdini," and this is like a year ago, I'd still have people tweeting at me saying like, "Where's Houdini? Where's Houdini?
where's
Where's Houdini?"
Houdini?
It was like, no,
Yeah.
no, this was never
Houdini
supposed
tutorials.
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like it would be fun. And who knows? Like I'm definitely not ruling it out. But man, there's just always so much stuff to learn. Like even right now, all of the new Node stuff in Cinema, like I have barely tinkered with it. And one of the main reasons is not nobody, but a lot of people have moved on and they're using third-party renderers, and that doesn't work with third-party renderers. It doesn't plug into Espresso at all, at least not yet. I hope it does at one point. And you can't even feed node-based materials into like a displacer. Like I use displacers all the time, but if I can't feed a node-based material into it, then there's no place for me to put this into my workflow. But that's a giant swath of Cinema 4D that I know very little about. Like I'm dangerous in X particles, but I'm not an expert in it. And I guess that's why when I found 3D, it's like, wow, I'm never going to stop using 3D or even just Cinema 4D. You can spend a month obsessed with modeling. You're like, I'm going to try and model a person. I'm going to model a car. And you're like, you know what? I'm bored with that. Let's do UVs and body paint and painting textures. Okay, cool. Let's do some espresso. Let's do particles. Let's do dynamics. By the time you get bored with one thing, you can move on to the next. And there's so many of those categories that you'll just loop back around again eventually. And
Yeah.
like I have a ton of hobbies in real life. Like I got my 3D printer I use sometime. I got the laser cutter. I do different creative projects. I'll feel like doing a video game, and like I jump from thing to thing.
Them
to thing to
Legos.
thing to thing. Yeah, and Legos. I've actually got quite a few set up in my room right now. But but with 3D, you can do that and never leave the piece of software.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's not even talking about other things like we just doing the photogrammetry or starting to learn Substance or, you know,
Mhm.
24 other pieces of software that would directly help and tie into your workflow. So you can never get bored. It's amazing.
There's so many times I'm like, I just wish I could pause the universe for a second, go learn all the
Mhm.
things that I want to learn, and then
Let
unpause.
me
I went
let me pause
Groundhog
today,
Day.
learn everything there is to know about fields,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then I'll come back.
And then I can start
I
paying
want-
bills again and all that other stuff, you
Right.
know?
I want to be Groundhog's Day so bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm doing more and more and more. And it would even be the perfect thing, because the perfect thing you do in that context is learn new skills, because that is the only thing that will transfer when hopefully time restarts.
Right.
Yeah.
normally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the thing? Okay, what was the thing last week with written questions only? So just no links? Is that what it was?
Oh, that was just a goof. The episode 13, I was like, ooh, episode 13, because I'm not superstitious at all. But it's like, oh, I should do something like episode 13, Danger Zone. I was like, oh, maybe I should do a theme. I should do a theme this week. And I was like, oh, like no, only typed questions, because like I said, 75-90% of the questions in any given week are a link to someone's Instagram or Behance or some amazing project that somebody
Right.
just made. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna challenge the audience to write out a question, and the flavor of that episode was pretty different, where it's more of a general question about this concept instead of like, here's this specific looping animation, how was that made?
Right.
Although we did end up making a looping animation, but at least it was more abstract, and I not basing it off of it. And it's
Yeah.
really important to me when doing those kind of live streams to, like, obviously things are going to be very heavily influenced by, like, inspired by what the question is, but I want to make it pretty fundamentally different whenever it's possible, because, you know, that artist put that work together, they figured it out, and I love the techniques, but I don't want to be like, oh, I made a thing, and this is highly unlikely, but let's say they make a thing and I make a thing and somehow mine gets more popular than theirs. It's like, no, I want
Yeah.
anything I make to feed back into what they created, and then to get the credit, and just, you know, kind of have an enthusiasm and a love for this work, and more people want to do stuff like that. So it's really important to me that we're constantly giving the artists who made it credit, and
Have you
not
have
being
you
too
run into
derivative.
people who complain about that? Like, hey,
Literally,
you used my thing, and then but you didn't give me credit, and blah blah blah.
literally no one.
That's
I've had
good.
several people reach out and be like, oh my God, that was so cool. Like, I'm really happy, you know, like you did that, and thanks for linking. But like, I make sure in the show notes, there's direct links under the YouTube. There's links. In fact, I will not only do I link to the piece that we specifically referenced, but I'll track down their Twitter account or their homepage, so that we can link directly to it. And that part is really important to me. Especially because it's so useful to me to be learning new things and being inspired. And I mean, nothing's more fun than when somebody actually links to a photograph from a photographer, or even a
Yeah.
Houdini piece. Like, okay, if somebody made something in cinema, obviously it can be made, and we just have to figure out how they did it. But if it's in Houdini, maybe we can't do it in cinema, but maybe we can.
Yeah.
If this
Yeah.
is a photograph of a crazy sea anemone, like, I don't know. Let's see if we can make it. It's crazy. So those are usually my favorite. I never get more excited than when I think we can't do something, but I'm like, we're gonna try anyway, and it's like, holy cow, it's working. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So,
Your first one was actually pretty difficult. I think it was your first episode.
Was it the paint
Yeah, it
stroke
was
one?
the paint smear thing.
Ooh boy.
That was a
It's fun.
tough one right out of the gate.
that's actually a perfect example where it's like, whoa, this is working really well.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't
Yeah.
think this worked. I got stumped a couple times where we're trying to get the splines to be on the ground, and we ended up using an old tried and true method of the old FFD deformer.
Mhm.
But now this on the FFD is free form deformer, so don't want to do an ATM there.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
don't want to be.
Uh, but man, I just am learning so many new things all the time. Like, you learn new things every day. Like, I didn't do any cinema over the weekend. I had stuff to do. But on Friday, I learned that you can use the mesh deformer with. I always thought you had to use a mesh deformer with a volume of some sort, but you could do it with like a flat plane. So you could. This will hopefully be in my tutorial coming out, but. I had a bunch of like randomly cloned planes, and I needed them to stick to a surface. I was like, there's a couple of those deformers that don't work so well. And I was like, I'm just going to try the mesh deformer. Let's see if it works. And then instantly worked. I was like, wow, I cannot believe this is working.
Mhm.
So like every day you're learning new details. And that's, and I'll say that all the time, where people are like, how do you learn all these shortcuts? It's you just have to do it. If you want to learn shortcuts in any software, but Cinema 4D in particular, you can click on a tool, and then you're like, I want to do subdivisions. So you click on the menu and you do subdivisions, and you look at it. It's like, oh, the shortcut is US. I think it is. I don't know. My hand often knows it. My brain doesn't.
Yeah.
But you could be like, oh, US. Next time I'll remember that. But you're not going to remember it next time. So hit undo and then type in US.
Oh,
and
that's
now
a good idea.
You start building the muscle memory of
Yeah.
it. So never, if you're trying to learn a shortcut, don't click the object and make a note of it. Literally do the shortcut.
Yeah.
And you will start learning them very quickly.
Do you use any sort of like weird mental tricks to remember some of these shortcuts, or
No, it's really just forcing myself to use it by rote. I honestly have a terrible memory. I think I knew you guys for like a year and a half, and I was still like switching your names back. Like, I know this name. I'm just not sure which is which, and I am the worst. Like, I'll know somebody's face, but not know their name at all.
Same here. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
And
I always have to do a NAB like reminder thing where I go through some of the people who I haven't met or I've only met once or so, and I don't really remember their name. Like, I'll do that like a week or so before NAB so that I can remember them. So when they come up, I'll be like, hey, how you doing, so and so.
Yeah.
You have to become a master at shaking hand and be like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Saying,
hey,
you.
Hey, old pal.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's one thing. What is the one thing that, because like for me, it's like, oh, I wish I knew X particles better. Oh, I wish I knew fields better. Oh, I wish I, knew this. What's the one thing that you feel like that you wish that you knew better in cinema?
It's a tricky one. Because even the chunks of cinema I don't know deeply, I have a good working knowledge of.
Yeah.
Because my threshold tends to be like, I need to know this so inside and out that that I understood what the coder did to make this work. Like, not in a literal sense, but like mathematically, this process is happening because of this algorithm. Cool, I get that. So now I can explain why. So, honestly, I guess at this point, if I could just magically know something, it would be to like thoroughly understand probably Redshift, honestly, because I'm just not like rendering is not my thing. And it's very unlikely at any point I'm going to sit down and spend so much time in rendering that I'm like, cool, I have this confidence of the way that works. In a bigger sense, I'd probably say C++, honestly, because I can do the Python, I can't do C++.
Oh, man.
That's when you get the real meat of it. But yeah, Python is fun. I actually started incorporating Python into a couple things recently. I'm like, I always forget, Python's really fun. It's a pain in the butt to learn, but once you get it.
Now, your brothers are the ones who are doing all the coding stuff, right?
Yeah, they are the C++ people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can mock it up in Espresso. I can write some. I once wrote something that was like 5,000 lines of Python, so I could do that, and I get the logic and all that. But once you get into C++ and the deeper stuff and the actually piling and building up detailed algorithms, I mean, there's so much to do learning algorithms and mathematical notation and different processes. I mean, there's a huge broad strokes that even as a group we don't understand. So, but yeah, short answer, Redshift. Longer answer would be C++ because it'd be more useful. And after that, it'd probably be more stuff like going into Houdini because I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on Cinema 4D.
Yeah,
not quite. One day we'll get there.
Yeah. You got a link here to mental models. Is this a web page? A blog? What is this?
It is. You asked me if there's anything that I'd want to talk about today, and this is something that I heard on a podcast recently. There's a website called Farnham Street, and I can't go into too much detail here, but somebody they were going to school, and they wanted to learn how to learn and learn how to learn better and processes along that. And they kind of discovered that there wasn't that much good content there. So they put together this blog. I think they're working on a book. But specifically, they've got this amazing webpage that you've got pulled up there. And it's all about thinking better and mental models. A good way of thinking of it is imagine your head is like your phone, and you want new apps. Like, you download Shazam on your phone, and now you suddenly have this superpower that is to instantly know any song that's playing. And they just go through all these different mental models where, like, the first one is like the map is not the territory, and the circle of competence, and first principles thinking. And it just goes to like these really cool tools that you can install in your own brain to try and be a better thinker, be a clearer thinker, be more logical, not get trapped in a downward spiral of getting trapped in your head of some project or something. And I kind of made it where it's like every morning I'm popping this open and I'm reading one of their articles. It's kind of like how I'm starting the day and just going through. And I mean, I'm kind of obsessed with a lot of these kind of different details. I'm really interested in a lot of different science and astronomy and evolution, but like just the human mind and thinking and how people think, and is just I know I spent a lot of time learning about it. So a lot of this I had touched on at some points, but it's just such a great distillation of it. And I just thought it'd be a cool thing to make sure more people know about in the world.
Yeah.
Like, there be more good thinkers in the world is only a good thing. So,
sure.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes too, so people can go check that out. And
really,
got breaking news here. Breaking news.
Breaking.
Chad Ashley has switched to Houdini. No, I'm just kidding. He's installing Houdini on Twitter as we speak right now, and it's like, oh, is she switching? Oh my gosh.
Yep, there you go. Now
So everyone make sure and give him crap and say, "Oh, what happened to Houdini? Huh?
Right.
Why'd you stop?" It's funny.
Yeah, exactly what I'm talking about. There's good reasons to do it, and there's dangers with it. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Chad will probably eat that up as well. So
Yeah.
that'd be good.
Well, we got a couple other segments here, so let's quickly go through some links.
Yay! Dave's link.
The first one that I have is, this is a Twitter account from somebody who I guess has some early beta access to, some of the AR kit stuff from Apple and whatnot. And so they've been posting these different links online to videos of some tests and things like that. And a lot of people have been really digging that and like posting, links to some of the samples. It's called LAN Labs, LAAN, on Twitter. And the one in particular that everybody's been talking about is the one that looks like the Michel Gondry video.
Oh,
yeah.
But if you look at their account, actually, they've got a bunch of other cool things that they're doing with it. Just a lot of experimentation. And it makes me more excited for the future of AR and what people are going to be doing when they have like AR glasses and things like that. And the one thing I can tell you is that stoners are really going to love AR because
Sure.
it's gonna really, really like tweak that experience just a little bit. No pun
wow.
intended.
I'd only seen that one. These are amazing.
Yeah, these look
that's
really
cool.
Yeah, I don't know if VR is ever going to go anywhere. I'm very skeptical of it, but AR, when that gets figured out, it's going to be incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
what my head always goes to on that is when you like, how long did we have like our iPhones and smartphones before Lyft existed? Like, it took years and years before that tech developed, and it's such an obvious use of it, and it has completely transformed the way I think of certain forms of transportation. And like, you look at AR, like, until everybody has access to it, think of the crazy things that haven't been thought of yet. How crazy these could be. Like, right now, the obvious thing to me is always like, okay, you're gonna have a map overlay that tells you where to go. Like, that's such an obvious thing. But what's the weird thing someone's not gonna think of until 10 years later? That's gonna be incredible.
Right. Yeah, man. And how normal it will be by a certain time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so weird that like every single one of us has one of these that we just, pick up randomly and use all the time. But when I had a quote unquote smartphone back in 2003, and it was, you had to pay a lot extra for the data. It had the built-in keyboard. It was like a Casio something or other. Everybody's like, what do you need that for? What are you doing? Like, that's huge. Why would you need that? And now it's just like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, everybody has one. You know, so imagine
Yeah.
AR, and it's like there are going to be people who just cannot live without it. You know, so
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be like a sixth sense in a way.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So
Hey, if Elon Musk figures out that
yeah,
neural network stuff where you can just think it, because
Yeah.
right now the interface from your brain to your hands to the device is our choke point because you can think
Mhm.
so fast. Imagine if you could just think at a word processor and
Cinema
have the
4D.
words appear there.
What if you could think
Yeah.
what you
Oh,
want
yeah,
your
no, think of-
project to look like?
Yeah. Well, but even the basic level, just think like I want a cube. I want it there. I want it snapped to that point. I want it here. Like instead of like cube, scale, here, you could just think shrink, think moves, think snap.
Yeah.
Like even not even talking about like AI stuff or machine learning. That
Yeah,
is
but
going to be crazy.
Yeah.
But think about it. Like you ever like just having a normal day or whatever, and then just the weirdest thought comes up in your head.
Hmm.
Like you're on a bus or something, or on a plane or something.
Shower
Like, what
thought.
would happen if I just punched that guy in the face?
Oh yeah.
What would
Intrusive,
happen?
Yeah. Those
You
are
know?
called intrusive thoughts.
Yeah. Like
You're on
Oh.
a bridge and you're like, what if I just threw my phone as hard as I could?
right,
It's
exactly.
like, why did I think that?
And so I can only imagine you're in cinema and you're like, what if I just deleted this thing? What if I just closed it down without saving it? It's like, no, I just thought of that. Ah!
It's like the game. You can't think about it. Or you
Right,
lose.
exactly.
Yeah. And
Oh.
not only that, but then, does that get uploaded to the internet? Are they going to, like, is there going to be pre-crime? Like,
Right.
oh, man. The future.
I've been. Have y'all seen Altered Carbon
I've started
read-
watching it twice.
on
Read some of the book.
Mm.
on? Oh, I didn't know there was a book.
Yeah.
So I've been watching it on Netflix. We're on like the third episode now. It's pretty
Most
good.
of
I love the idea of like being able to download your brain or your memories,
Yeah.
who you are, into like a little tiny chip in the back of your neck. That's super cool.
Well, that was
That's
one
what I
link.
want to do. Yeah.
That was one link. Okay, I'm going to quickly go through these other ones because we got to get to the other
Cool.
stuff. All right.
There's more stuff.
Photoshop has added, well, we got People's People and Mograph recommends, so,
Right.
Photoshop has added the option to switch back the ability to use the Shift key to size something on the correct aspect ratio, to lock the aspect. So that's there.
That's great.
Uh,
What I wish Photoshop, and maybe there's a way to do this and someone can tell me, but I've found since updating, if I'm like making text bigger or something like that,
you always have to click
if
on
I
it twice.
highlight it, no, I
Oh.
highlight my text, right? But then I go up to the scale and I want to size it up. Like normally I just hit up, but it doesn't register. It doesn't
Oh.
automatically change it now. Like it won't register until I hit enter, which is dumb
Interesting.
because I need to be able to see it. It wastes a ton of time.
You always have to click.
Do you,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you guys know the answer. What I've been finding in the new Photoshop is if I select a little piece of text and I want to update it, you have to hit the key twice. Like let's just say I'm changing the graphic for episode 12 to episode 13. I select the 2 and I type in 3 and it doesn't type. And I hit 3 a second time. It's like, okay, cool, now I'll do it.
I
Why is it
haven't
doing
had
that?
that problem.
Hashtag
Yeah.
Adobe. That's
Yeah.
why.
That's why, because reasons. Also, I've got a link to the NVIDIA AI sandbox stuff. There's that one
Oh,
particular
that's cool.
thing where you can
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
draw, like, have you seen, you can draw your own thing and the AI will, like, make a sky or something out of it. And there's, like, different options
Tree
for
or a rock or water
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
all that kind of stuff. It's like, so basically you have to click the terms of service for some reason. But, you just put in a bunch of grass and, like a river. I'm going to add a road right here. I have no idea if this is going to work. Let's add some clouds and the skies there. I don't know. I'll do a mountain right here and then got to fill it in. And yeah, maybe a tree. Maybe a nice tree will go right here. Let's see what we get. Oh, see, not too bad.
Pretty good.
I made a
That's
daily.
pretty good.
there you
Made a
go.
daily render. They need an option to put a
literally
person right here. They're real small.
Yeah.
Right.
I was literally having like a 3-hour discussion / argument with some people at the last meetup about this very type of topic. And like, we just need a couple little things to align and you will be able to like think at your screen and get whatever
Yeah.
visually that you want.
Auto
So-
texturing, man. Whew, man, some auto texturing. You could just build the whole thing and the textures just kind of making themselves as you go. That would be really fun.
Yeah.
It would be. Yeah.
It's going to get crazy.
All right, a couple other links. There's the new VFX toolkit for After Effects, which is from Red Giant. That came out.
The super comp stuff looks really cool.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. While I was watching it, I was like, wow, this is really awesome. Something that they showed off in the introduction to super comp, where he's like, yeah, so let's turn this on and off, and you can look at it and see super comp kind of looks a little bit better. And the reason that is because we're using, the correct color space and 32-bit. And I'm like, why, after all this time, is Adobe not just using this? Why did someone have to write an entire other program just to do this correctly?
That's a question with a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like people building programs within programs.
Really awesome. Yeah, and it's like, that's so confusing to me. It's like, you're building everything. Like, why? I'm curious why Red Giant didn't just decide to create their own After Effects type program. I'm sure there's so much more to that, but still, I mean, you're building a program inside a program, Yeah. I don't know. Maybe, Chris, you can tell me a little bit because you guys do some coding.
It just depends on how much time you're willing to invest in that type of thing. And you probably need quite a few PhDs on the team to be able to start pulling that off, where we're largely self-taught with what we do. So if you have the right team, then you can potentially do it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. I mean, like, what's the other software that everybody's getting all excited about? That's in the super early
Cavalry.
stages? Yeah, Cavalry.
Yeah.
There you go. There's somebody who's like tinkering around, slowly building up some tools from scratch.
See, Chris, here's what you need to do. You need to create a 2D version of Cinema. That's what you should do. Create your own program. Create your own program with hookers and blackjack.
I think you guys use a lot more diverse software than I do, because I tend to just use Cinema 4D all the time.
Yeah.
But I use Cinema 4D in so many inappropriate circumstances. Like if I could do my taxes in Cinema 4D, I would. I mock up everything in Cinema 4D. I do my color correction in Cinema when I have to. I barely even I almost never use Illustrator. If I need to do something with lines, I will use Cinema 4D to do it, because I can clone and bevel parametrically and just make changes with a hierarchy instead of just random layers.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, if you could do your taxes in Cinema 4D, that would be cool. But you wouldn't want to do Cinema 4D like taxes.
No.
You wouldn't want to flip it the other way. Oh, you want to make a cube? Okay, fill out this form. Send it in, wait 6 to 8 weeks.
Microtransactions. That's always an idea with my brother had. It's like, we'll make plugins and do all these little microtransactions. It's like, I see that you've used 10 different versions of Signal. Would you like to pay for an 11th?
Yeah.
Or you you get achievements for clicking buttons.
Yeah.
It's funny.
A robot penguin says Cinema 2D. See, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, there you go. Beat it down.
I'll get through the rest of these real quick here. NBC has this huge thing on deepfakes. It's another one of those scare pieces, we're all gonna die because deepfakes exist, and
I don't know, deepfakes is pretty crazy.
Well, it's funny because they show an example and you're like, see this person going up to accept their Academy Award? Look again, it's actually me. And the person that they got to do the deepfakes for it didn't do that great of a job, so it's very obvious there's pieces of their face flashing and they're like, look how realistic it is. And it's like, no, it's not.
Did you see the Corridor Digital?
Corridor Digital.
Yeah. The
That was
newest
neat.
one with where they got a Tom Cruise impersonator and did deepfakes with the Tom Cruise impersonator to make it look like actual Tom Cruise.
That's cool.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. I mean, of course, human faces and the uncanny valley. But you know what? I'm actually fine with this being some scare pieces, because when it comes to politics and people being able to edit politicians and people running for office and make them say whatever they want and make them look like they're in places they never were. We need the public to understand that this is a thing.
Yeah.
And even if it's scary, even if they're being overly scary about it, we need the general population to understand that this technology exists, and you can probably do it by yourself on your computer at home.
And the thing is, people got used to Photoshops, right? The name Photoshop, it's a verb, and it's like, is that Photoshop? People who don't even know what Photoshop is or have never seen the interface know that term. Oh, that's totally Photoshop, you know? And I think that eventually that'll be the understanding that not only photos are like that, but videos as well can be like that. It's, you know, it's something where you really have to have some skill to do it right. I've got to find that Corridor Digital one posted in the notes. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. They also did another one where it was the Boston Dynamics or Booston
I watched
Dynamics.
that this morning. Yeah.
Yeah, where they're messing around with these robots and stuff. We need to get Ren on the show to talk about that.
He's on your list of people you're supposed to be contacting. So
yeah, you know, once Camp Mograph is over, I'll start contacting these people.
Oh, we're gonna have no more guests till November. Sorry.
No more guests till November. Sorry.
Yeah. Also, did you know Mr. Horse makes sound effects too?
It does?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I want to say, like, can't you like buy their entire library or something like that?
No, they have an After Effects plugin for sound effects for motion graphics specifically. This is something I was looking for the other day, and so this is really cool. I had no idea Mr. Horse did that, so it had what I needed though, little zips and bangs and whooshes and all the things that you would want when you're putting together, you know, a sports package like I was doing.
Yeah,
you know,
it says essential sound effects.
Yeah.
So you've got essential sound effects like miscellaneous glitch, strong glitchy hiss.
Well, there's a part
like
part
that.
2 now too as well, so you get all of them if you buy part 2, which we own now.
Yeah,
we own now,
cool.
by the way. But,
oh, sweet.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
yeah, so you'll have to check that out. Also, just a quick clip. It's something that David Ariev posted online the other day. Deadmau5 is using more of our stuff. He posted it, but man, his new cube.
The new cube looks so amazing.
You don't see any pixels at all. It's just like in the video, it's just completely smooth, you know?
Yeah. It's insane. Like, and the fact that like it's cool. So he's got his original cube, you know, with the 3 sides and stuff like that. But then he's got these 2 screens on the left and right side that are basically like super wide screen stuff. And then so he's mixing between going, you know, just regular on the cube and other stuff going on the sides to like the full screen on all of it. It's just like, oh, it looks so good. It looks so good. Yeah.
Alien Activity.
I'm glad to know he's still able to use some of our animations that we did.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Alien Activity says Mount Mograph actually has a motion design sound effects AE plugin as well.
Well, that's
I'll
cool.
have to check that out.
That's cool.
And then lastly, is just something I saw on Facebook. Ahmet is working for the new version of the Octane plugin for Cinema 4D. He's working on integrating some of the native nodes into this now. So we'll see how that comes out. He just posted a kind of in the works thing. So all right,
get noise and gradient. Those are the 2 that I care about the most. Like if we can get noise and gradient working, you know, to where I don't have to, you know, bake those out, that would be awesome.
Gradients and Octane are just not. I don't get it.
They're just not
I don't.
there.
I don't get it.
It's not very good.
It's weird.
Well, that explains some of the trouble I had with LightKit then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just really weird. Yeah. But
I don't ever use gradients in Octane or Redshift. Really, I just use a standard C4D gradient.
Yeah.
Because they're so good.
It. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we got 2 more segments, and we're going long here. So let's move on a little bit. First of all, we're going to do Beeple's People.
Yay!
You can't go to the bathroom because I'm going to go to the bathroom. You've got to start the segment this time.
I don't know how to start this segment. This is all you, bro.
All right. Well, then I'm going to start it, and you can talk about it while I go to the bathroom again. Here's the thing. I'm intermittent fasting, so in order to not be hungry, I'm drinking so much water that now I've had to go twice.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I get that. I'm back on my diet too. I gotta I've been having.
Gotta do that Seagraph. Get that weight off for Seagraph. Be on camera.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I always do my NAB weight. You know. All right.
Take out your Beeple viewer of choice. We're gonna go to June 18th, Year of our Lord 2019, and
June 18th.
This one is called Little Rocket Man 2091. I'm gonna bring that up here.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna pee and go.
All right. Cool. He's actually done a couple of these the past couple days. That's what I've noticed. Like this one, and then I think yesterday he did one with Zuckerberg's head and stuff. You know, I know he's got those Turbo Squid credits that he can use in order to download all these
Oh, is
heads.
that? I was wondering what his source material is for some of this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he gets I think him and Turbo Squid have a deal going on or something like that.
Oh, that would make sense.
Yeah, but it's fun. I think he's doing a standard dystopian future. It's interesting that the big people now is Kim Jong Un. Is that Kim Jong?
I think so.
I can't remember which one.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, stylistically, I feel like he peaked on the Homer Simpson head, like that, like in the style where you're putting that head on something inappropriate. Like that one was so good.
Yeah.
That I see all these, I'm like, I just thinking of that Homer Simpson.
I don't think I remember the Homer Simpson one.
Oh, that was a good one. I don't have any kind of link, but yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna look it up. People. See. Oh yeah. Oh, that one was so good with the eye that was just kind of popping out and stuff like that.
Like there's
so much
fun.
If I had Dave's control of his computer, I could actually log into it if I wanted. But the Homer Simpson one, that one. Here, show this one. Show this one,
oh,
Dave.
Hello.
Because we were referencing this.
Okay.
When talking about that. The dingus, yeah.
All right, let's see.
It's the Homer Simpson one, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Like I think that's the perfected version of this. I think he might have done a couple different Homer Simpson ones. I think he had one where he's actually walking around.
Yeah, he had an animated version of this.
He gets crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What were you referencing it for?
Well, because we were talking. Chris was saying like the best one that he thinks he did, where you're taking all these heads, sticking them on robot bodies and stuff.
Yeah.
Was the Homer Simpson one.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
All right.
I love the compositing. I think it looks pretty with all the sparks and the smoke and stuff like that. And he's definitely playing on the big people, small people thing.
The next one is going to be June 22nd. It's called Death Valley. Go up here. Death Valley. Oh yeah,
that one's pretty.
Somebody was writing stories too, by the way, to go with some of these. Yeah.
You should add that link in there because it's super cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna write my own story too.
See, with some of these, I've been looking at them and I'm like, oh, how can I turn that into like a Beeple meme?
I like
like this one. I was like, oh man, what have we come on? And then it's like, oh, this was the last project just got finished up.
Or, something like that. Yeah. They're still waiting on changes. I don't know. Yeah.
Waiting on changes. Yeah.
I want to write a story too. It'd be like,
that's good.
I think it would be cool to do a story where like somebody is thrust into the Beepleverse and like what is going on, like the shock factor.
Yeah, that's a movie there.
Yeah.
There you go.
Like
people renders.
A girl like a girl like she's living the farm life. She's out in the country and she gets thrust into the Beepleverse.
Yeah.
I'll call it Anne of Green Greebles.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you write that? You wrote that ahead of time.
I didn't write it ahead of time, but I thought of the term Anne of Green Greebles. And I'm like, I've got to come up with a story for that.
All right. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah. All right. So this one, when the client asks for more changes.
I wish the camera had been tilted down a little bit. I feel like the composition could be a little bit better. Like I want to know what's going on in the background a little bit, or maybe
in the foreground.
Not so much empty space of the
I got you.
Of the thing.
Here's the thing, whatever this was ate a bunch of people.
It's true. Oh anyway. Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Like right in the stomach,
this
right?
Was this one of the this is a machine, right? It looks like it. But it has bones,
yeah,
so
it looks like the bones are metal.
It was like one of those robotic
are there multiple legs and stuff?
Well, it's probably one of those crazy animals. And all of these are huge skeletons.
Yeah.
So this is like, they had some big people animals that all died out here, but I think that they
It
probably
must have
ate all the
just
humans.
eaten them too. It probably ate all the humans and then immediately died.
But notice there's
I don't
piles
know.
of them
There's
everywhere.
only heads.
Well, that's the
Why is there only
thing.
heads?
Because they come up on them and they eat their head. That's like,
Okay.
that's what you do.
Right.
When you're
of
a
course.
giant, mechanical, oversized, big people-sized dinosaur. I don't know.
All right.
Doesn't have to make sense. All right, let's go to the next one. June 23rd, it's Zuckerbeast sighting.
Yeah. See, this is what
This
I
is
was
great.
mentioning, dude.
This is so
It's
funny.
so stupid.
Yeah,
Man.
this is not one of my favorites.
It's
See,
funny,
you can't
though.
it's like Zuckerberg is a joke unto himself,
Right.
you know? And so it's like I don't know.
It's
Yeah.
It's because every
That,
photo
like,
of him, like
that
everybody calls him a
stoic
robot.
face
Yeah.
Of his, you know,
He's a
the
robot.
stoic face. It's like, yeah.
Or an alien.
Yeah.
So this is when the alien that's inside of him actually like fully takes over.
Right.
This is what happens.
But it's funny. I think it's funny that everyone's got their phones out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
See, this is a statement because people's talking about the integration of technology into our society and
Yeah,
how
that
it
it
makes
doesn't
us.
matter how much someone who's in control is like a crazy, you know, like actual beast.
And it symbolizes the
people are just gonna
corporatism in America and how I don't know. I mean,
See, now,
I bet-
yeah.
someone who is really like artsy fartsy, like I could see that type of person being like, oh, there's all this deep meaning and layers,
Yeah.
and then you get to know Mike, and it's like this,
Yeah.
like he's just like, you know, it'd be funny, like let's put a couple phones in their hands, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
zero pretension at all.
Right.
But somebody could take this and try and do this really deep interpretation on the commentary on the state of technology and humanity in this moment, and it's like. He probably just thought it'd be funny to put, you know, it's like, oh, Zuckerberg phones in the hand, like makes sense.
I mean, he is. I'm sure in a way he is making a commentary on that. You know, a very tongue-in-cheek kind of way of doing it. You know, but I guarantee you, once Mike dies, you know, from like crazy partying too hard.
Yeah, right.
Once Mike dies, I guarantee you, like, this is going to go down in history as the thing that people look at in art history, you know, where it's like, what was he thinking here? What was going on in his brain at this day on this render, you know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Guarantee you. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then they reference our podcast when we've had him on and he talks about
The
it.
historians, like,
Yeah.
the Mograph historians here.
yeah,
right?
There needs to be
They've only got a few fragments of your podcast.
Dude,
yeah.
I'm telling you, I'll be super happy when someone references our podcast in their theory or what is it called in order to graduate?
Oh, and their thesis.
Thesis.
Their thesis, yeah, about
Jeez.
Mike Winkleman people.
Right. No, I can imagine this being a really funny short where he's going around killing people, and every time, like right before he's about to kill him, it's just some really mundane, like long, droning quote that he said in front of Congress or something for like 30 seconds, and the person's just standing there like, what? And then he kills him. You know, it's
or
just
he just
really
goes,
boring
or
sound
as
bites.
as he's like ripping them apart, it's like so and so liked this.
Yeah. It could be like this really dark, dry humor. I don't know.
Right.
Anyway. All right.
Right.
Let's move on to Beeple's People, and then we'll get out of here. We're almost
That was
at
it.
2.5
That was
hours.
People's People.
I'm sorry. I mean to Mograph recommends. And
Yay!
all right. Are you ready for this, Chris?
I don't know. Let's do it.
All right. Mograph
Let's get to
recommends.
know
We're gonna
the
ask
real
your favorites.
Schmidt.
The real. All right. Favorite movie.
Oof.
Could be all time or recent.
Yeah,
favorite.
there's different way. You know, there's always
Yeah.
those subcategories.
Right.
And I don't have any like really clever ones. Like I'm the kind of person who can watch Terminator 2 or 1 on repeat.
It's such a good
Um,
movie though.
It's so good. But, you know,
Like,
Alien,
if you
Alien.
said Terminator 2, I'd be like, yeah, I'm totally with
Yeah.
you there. I get it.
I saw the
Kill
trailer for the
Bill
new
1
one.
and 2.
Did you see the trailer?
Oh,
There's
Oh.
yeah.
yeah. Luckily, they only ever made 2 Terminators.
Right, exactly.
It's good for all of us if that's the case. And then like Kill Bill, I've watched that like a million times. But then I gotta say, it's gonna be a little cliche for me, but the Lego movie's pretty amazing. Like
Dude,
where
the
Yeah.
like
second one is just as good as the
I
first
just
one.
watched it. I am so mad at
So
myself.
good.
I did not go and see that in the theater, and I
Mhm.
only just watched it a week ago
Yeah.
for the first time. And I was like, oh my God, this is like 90% as good as the first one,
Yep.
which is like impossible because the first one was so good.
Yep.
And it's a musical, and I love musicals. So
Yeah.
there's a bunch of like songs in it which are like ridiculously sarcastically catchy.
Mhm.
So like I'm 100% down. But the
Yeah.
reason I'd say that movie like is a contender is because not only does it have a great story, I'm talking about the original one. It not only does it have an amazing story kind of unto itself, it tells a story that is also uniquely Lego, where this story couldn't have been told with live action people. It had to be told with Lego.
Mhm.
So they justify the fact that it's Lego. When that movie was first announced, I thought we were heading for like Battleship kind of thing, or it's like this is gonna be
Yeah.
the worst. And then when I saw the first little hints of the animation they were doing, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the story, characters, voice acting, all that's brilliant.
Mhm.
But and the movie's full of Lego jokes, which are freaking hilarious. But just watching the animation and the simulations and everything, like I could just watch it frame by frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it works on literally every level. So that I'm gonna go with Lego movie.
Cool.
Straightforward, but I was going to be the hardest critic on that movie, and it instantly sold me on it. So
Yeah.
And what about music? Lego soundtrack? What's your favorite music?
Honestly, one of my go-tos is just kind of Gorillas. I'm a big fan of Gorillas.
Mhm.
Reinhold Jenkins is actually probably my favorite these days. In fact, I licensed his music to use in front of my live streams. So
Oh,
yeah, I'd
nice.
say definitively Reinhold Jenkins. I love his stuff. He's so funny. He's got YouTube videos, and just his little intro where he's like, "Hey YouTubes," it's like, his material is great. It's like some electronic stuff, but it's got a really good progression to it. I hate repetitive things, and
Mhm.
like it's great build up and energy and hopeful and happy. It's great stuff.
Do you do any music stuff? Do you play
Hey,
anything?
I'm gonna mute myself real quick. I gotta take a phone call. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
Oh, I do not. I do not have a musical bone in my body. I have not played an instrument since I had to play the recorder in like middle school.
See, I'm
So-
surprised about that because Matt has a theory on that that most motionographers are heavily into music, and there's some link between it. Not all of them. But...
No, I've heard multiple people say things along those lines, including Matt, and yeah, it just never happened to me.
Yeah.
I don't have a very musical family though,
Mm-hmm.
so there's definitely some more art in the family than music specifically. So
I
yeah,
think
don't
that
know.
helps. When your family's super musical, that tends to kind of osmose into everybody in the family, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lot of people. Music is really, really, really important in their life. Like it is very defining. And for me, I like music, and I often have music on in the background. But I'm the kind of person who's like, oh, I know that song, but I don't know who the artist is, and I might know three other songs and not know it's the same person. And it's just something that's very background to me. I
Mhm.
like it, but it's not defining to me in any way. So yeah, but I also don't make a lot in the way of final renders. So maybe his theory is intact. So
Okay, now what about TV shows? Have you been watching anything you like lately?
hmm. Um. Well, Game of Thrones ended up being a train wreck in the end, which is really fun to complain about. But it took a little bit to get into, but The Expanse, I'm pretty into. It got canceled and then it got picked up by Amazon. So this is where I'm going to judge Amazon's ability to create something, is if they do a good job with the fourth season. Um, is what I'm looking forward to probably the most right now, honestly. It's like really kind of hard sci-fi in the future. And like I said, I pay a lot of attention to that kind of astronomy stuff, and I'm, constantly keeping up with all the rocketry happening, not only, like Elon Musk's kind of stuff, but also like the Blue Origin thing. So I'm really into that. But then the greatest thing ever made is One Punch Man season 1. the absolute most amazing thing ever created. So if you haven't, anybody listening, if you have not watched One Punch Man season 1, go watch it.
You told me
It's the
about
best.
that, and I still haven't done it yet.
Oh my god, I should just leave right now so you can go watch it. Right.
Sorry, y'all.
Like, so amazing.
Okay, what about podcasts? Do you listen to podcasts?
A, just a little bit. Honestly, I am pretty addicted to YouTube in general. Like, I don't have TV in my house at all, but I have a lot of people I'm subscribed to. But if I were to say just podcast, I listen to the Making Sense podcast from Sam Harris. He is he's written a lot of books, but he has a lot of really difficult, deep conversations about everything, like life and politics, and lots of just deep, difficult topics, and he's not afraid to go in there deeply and figure things out. So I really enjoy his content. I've seen him speak live like 3 different times. Like I've seen him speak more times than I've gone to concerts in general. Like I've seen him as an artist more than any other. That and Weird Al.
I've seen Weird Al in concert. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
It's funny. All right. Plugin. Favorite plugin?
Well, that's a dangerous question since I make so many.
I know.
This is actually an interesting question for me because at a certain point, it's like, well, do you count renderers as plugins?
Right.
Do you
Yes.
and then X Particles at this point is just like a must-have. It's almost like if you own Cinema 4D, you also own X Particles. So at that point, I almost want to exclude that from. So it's like, okay, I would say number 1 would be X Particles, but then I kind of want to eliminate it, and then like all the third-party rendering is just like upped Cinema 4D's game to such a degree. It's incredible. But then once I get beyond that, because of kind of the position I'm in, I don't want to be making tutorials where I'm constantly telling people like, oh, you have to go download this, do this, go do this.
Yeah.
So I usually use a pretty vanilla version of Cinema 4D as a general rule.
Yeah.
So yeah, and at that point, I kind of want to just do a shout out for Signal that it's a Greyscale Gorilla plugin, but that's kind of it's one of my babies. But I want to say, like, I use Signal all the time in so many different circumstances. It is such a great tool, and it's the one that when I was over at Greyscale Gorilla, it's the one that we always struggled with the most to convey what it does. But once somebody picks it up and they start using it, it's like
once you understand it, it's
it.
like, oh wow, this is way powerful.
Yeah.
That was my biggest problem for a while. It's like we bought it and it's like I don't know how to use this really. But then once I understood it, it's like, oh, okay, this is really good. This is great. I can use this for everything.
Yeah, and it drives every parameter. You can do so many things. If you're not familiar, it does great like looping animation or noise based animation, and you can apply it to any parameter. It's like the vibrate tag for any parameter, but so much more than that. And then we added in beats per minute as a thing.
Yeah.
And we actually working back and forth with deadmau5 on that actually. And so you can sync things to a song really well. And then there's one feature that I snuck in when we did the 1.5 update, which I just use all the freaking time. And if you're using noise if you're driving a parameter with noise, okay, cool. It's wiggling up and down. But I made it so that instead of progressing forward with time, you could progress forward with a parameter, which meant you can drive time forward with a beats per minute, with a BPM. So on a beat, you can progress your noise forward a certain amount of time. So you suddenly get this like one level, like almost like this meta level of signal where a song can be controlling a random motion. So your random color will progress a beat every time it hits and things like that. Like, oh man.
Pickle Nick used that exact same thing on his Monkey Legs animation.
Oh yeah?
Like that's what's driving the pulsing, the changing of the colors. He's got like a floor, like a glowing floor, and each one is a different color, and it changes colors based on the beat.
Yeah,
nice.
I use it constantly, and there's so many circumstances like, oh, how would I do this? Oh, use Signal, it's easy. So, yeah, that's my go-to.
Let's see if I can open it here. And...
Squeeze me with your monkey legs. Squeeze me with your monkey
I'll
legs.
mute
Squeeze
it.
me with your monkey legs.
Oh my gosh, it won't mute. It won't mute. Oh, the song that will never get out of your head. Here it is. This is the... So this is what he did for the colors on the floor, or the...
Yeah, the colors
with
on
the
the
beat?
floor.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. Pretty cool.
Yeah, progressing things forward. Like there's so many novel uses. That's one of those things where it's like when someone is like, "How do you I want to learn espresso. Can you teach espresso?" It's like the problem with espresso is every time you use it, you're doing it for a completely unique use.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
okay, if you're gonna model a car, you can kind of watch a tutorial on modeling any car and be like, okay, I can apply that to what I'm learning. But espresso, it's like, I want to build an espresso staircase. I want to use espresso to build a particle rig. I want to do it to control, a character rig. Like every use is completely unique and different. You just need to understand the fundamentals. And unfortunately, Signal falls in that category. But it's so freaking useful for so many different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to the next one is headphones.
Well, I just bought this pair actually. I'm trying to remember what the brand is. I think it's a Bose.
Yeah,
Bose Quiet Comfort 35. They look
Those look like a newer version though. Those look.
Yeah, I only just bought these like a month ago because I just didn't care. I had an old pair; they were falling apart, so I wanted to get new ones. These are not soundproof, but they've been working really well.
Oh,
They're
okay.
wireless. I want them to be. They pair up the phone, so yeah, nothing. They're not magical, but they're solid headphones.
Cool.
I don't even have the brand name. It's not something I paid that much attention to.
The next question we've modified a little. It used to be website or Chrome extension, but we've had an app into that too. Like, do you have a favorite app or thing that you use on a regular basis like that? An extension, an app, a website.
Chrome extension or app.
You did show us that one website earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Reddit all the time.
Right.
Obviously, that's a dangerous one. But as far as extension, the one I use, Grammarly. I'll do a big shout out for that. You probably heard that before. I started that from Chad. I almost didn't even think of it because it's just such a part of my workflow now. I don't even think about it. Honestly, those are the most amazing tools. Are the ones that they're not specialty anymore. They weave themselves into your life in a way that you're like, well, obviously that's just a thing. Why would I even talk about it? It's there.
Yeah.
And then like the Pinterest one, which is really nice for saving things. Actually, I don't even have a name. Let me see if I can find it. If I mouse over these, Hover Zoom. There's one called Hover Zoom, which is really great for Reddit specifically, but also in Pinterest. And it's just when you move your mouse over a thumbnail image, it will actually pop it out to be a big one without you ever clicking a link. And it just on things like Reddit or doing Google image search or like even on Facebook or something, if you hover over somebody's tiny image, it'll zoom up into the big one, and it speeds you up on all sorts of places. So that one's great.
All right.
I'll presume Chrome extension.
Last one. What is your favorite life hack?
Life hack. You know what? Like, I don't want to say it's not a specific thing. There's more of a philosophy, but I think it kind of it turns into a hack in the way you apply it all the time. And that is and as far as like mental tools, this is just one that I've been obsessed with forever. And it's iteration. Iteration where you're constantly, if you're doing some sort of routine that's identical and you just do it again and again and again, try doing it a little bit differently every single time. And you start learning different, like a little variation. It's like, oh, I can speed this thing up like this tiny little amount, but I'm going to do that every single time. And it's going to be quicker. Like, the ways of organizing or, like brushing your teeth, do it in a slightly different way, do something in a new order, like rearrange things, iterate. And when you're cooking, like try cooking one way and then try cooking in a slightly different way. I'm trying to think of a really specific example because I literally do this kind of thing like on every aspect of my life every single day. Where it's like, okay, you're driving home. Like I live in the city, and especially when I was driving home from our old shared space at bomb camp, I would take a different way home. I'd try different way, and then eventually you start looping. But it's like, oh wait, if I would make all these weird turns, and I found this really quick way that avoided a bunch of lights and avoided a bunch of slowdown, and I got that way. I found the best way to go because I iterated and changed again and again and again. And it's not about doing it on anything specific. It's about doing it on everything. Like shake it up a little bit, just change it that little bit and constantly improve. It's almost like applying evolution to it. Like create variation, and now that you have this variation, which permutation is most applicable or best to the situation. If you just do the same thing again and again and again in a perfect routine, you're not getting that variation, so you can never improve.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That's cool, man.
That's a really good one. Most people can't even think of anything and we skip it. So I think that was pretty good. Cool. Well, that wraps it up. You can rate us on iTunes, leave a review. You can also subscribe to us on your podcatcher of choice. That helps with our ratings and such. you can subscribe to our newsletter and find out more about things like Camp Mograph and such. You can say you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt with the Mograph logo tee, the Paul Babb Feel the Bab 2020 shirt, all the profits from that go to Doctors Without Borders. And we've got the Render Things tee and hoodie and long sleeve. It's about time to bust out your Render Things shirt because Stranger Things is about to come back on the 4th. And then that Render is Fire shirt just came out as well. You can find all these on Amazon. And of course, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, YouTube, and Mograph.com. Chris, thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you guys have been trying to get me on here for years, so
I know.
I'm glad
Yeah.
I finally made it.
Yeah.
You're like, you want to be on a podcast?
We just had to wait for you to do your own thing.
Yeah.
You know?
There you go. Hopefully we'll see. We don't know if we'll see you. We might see you at SIGGRAPH. We might not. Depends on the schedule.
Yeah, maybe.
And we'll definitely be hanging out, I'm sure, later in the year and all that. So,
If nothing else, HalfRez.
yeah.
Yes.
Everybody check out RocketLasso.com. Check out it's HalfRez.com. Is that right?
Yeah,
It's not
HalfRez.com.
like .org or something. Is it .com?
No, keep them simple.
And that's about it. Anything else? Where can people find you elsewhere? All just at Rocket Lasso, right?
Yeah, at Rocket Lasso on all the things, or at Chris Schmidt or Chris Schmidt 3D on Twitter for slightly more personal things.
Right.
So yeah,
Cool.
All right, cool. Well, appreciate you being on again, and we're going to take off.
Thanks for having me.
Till next week, I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Chris.
Have a good one.
Bye bye.
Later, yo.
All right, we're still live. We're going to stay live for a second while I
Hot in my office.
power everything off
Sorry,
here.
I had to step away. I'm refinancing my house, and the lady was like, "Oh, I'm running late." I'm like, "Okay." She sent me a text. She said, "Please call me." I was like, "Oh,
The emergency refinancing situation.
right."